everybody, and welcome to episode 222 of the Warhammer podcast called Look Out, Sir. It's a remarkable episode on account of the fact that we now will need to produce 111 more to be able to have an episode with all the numerals being themselves. Doesn't that make you think, Phil?
I'm somewhat confused. Can you explain?
So it's episode 222, and it will never be the same numeral in sequence until we get to episode 333.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean now. Yeah, that is fancy.
Yeah, exactly.
We should celebrate it in some fashion.
Well, we mentioned it. That's as much as you get, you know. These are the weird things.
Our way of celebrating things is by just doing a regular episode.
Absolutely. There are no special occasions here. We just do what we've always done.
I mean, you've always promised me cake and it's just never materialised.
That is fair. Again, I always like to remind you that I once did get cake, but you didn't partake.
Well, I wasn't offered. You just had it. You just ate it in front of me.
I don't think that's true. At all. Anyway, what are we going to be talking about in episode 222, Phil?
Well, if you don't listen to us on YouTube, which, you know, maybe you should, then you won't know what we're talking about. And, I mean, you might have read the title. It's Codex Drukhari.
Yay! Codex Drukhari!
Yay! The last of the codexes, we are assuming for 40k this edition. Is it good? Is it a terrible, awful codex? Or is it pretty darn tooting? You'll have to listen to us ramble on for a good few hours or skip to the end to find out.
Yep. That is something we encourage you to do, as well as obviously encouraging you to check out and support us on Patreon. Thank you so much to all of our incredible Patreon supporters. Again, at the moment, we simply offer, the warm sense of wonderment that is supporting our pod and helping us keeping the lights on, although we are looking at potentially doing a lot more with that as we move forwards, but we'll update you on that situation as it unfolds. But for now, massive thank you to all our patrons, and if you would consider supporting Look Out Sir via Patreon, it would mean the world to us. Massive thank you to all of our incredible patrons. You are the best. Additionally, we do have merchandise available. Christmas is coming around the corner, so you never know. Get yourself a fancy Look Out Sir t-shirt, to show all your friends and family how cool you really are. And then lastly, there's 5-star reviews. The 5-star reviews are a huge and important part of maintaining our relevance and our overall kind of exposure across the various platforms. So thank you to everyone who's given us a 5-star review before. And on this occasion, we're going to be starting out a 5-star review from Apple Podcasts of Australia, given to us by an individual called Fleeemo from Apple Podcasts of Australia. Thank you very much, Fleeemo. We're going to get to that in a moment. But before we transition to the 5-star review, is there anything you wanted to say, Phil, before we get on with things?
I love you very much, Dan.
Oh my God.
You are appreciated.
This is all taking a bit of a turn. There we are. Well,
I just want my goddamn cake.
Fair. And on that, let's get on with a 5-star review. But before then, transitional noise. As was stated in the bit before this, our 5-star review on this occasion comes by Fleeemo on Apple Podcasts of Australia. Thank you, Fleeemo, for your 5-star review, which is, of course, a prerequisite of appearing here in the 5-star review section. And if you would like to be like Fleeemo and give us a 5-star review, we encourage you to do so, and have just done so. So why not give us a 5-star review and be a super cool human like Fleeemo? So, here is their 5-star review. The Gateway Podcast. Years ago, as a younger person, I indulged in a great hobby, saving every dollar to buy blister pack or a box of something here and there. Painting and playing, Warhammer was the thing that bound our friendship circle. Years passed, and the hobby went away, replaced by more important things. One day, as a grown person, a podcast twinkled in the search tab, a half-remembered memory of grimdark horrors and mythic tales. Look out, sir? is what it said. And I thought, what harm could it bring? Just to listen. Just a bit. Now I stand over a... Don't laugh, I'm trying to put my heart and soul into this. I'm amazed that my dyslexia hasn't kicked in and made it go completely terribly wrong. Anyway, now I stand over a compounding collection of miniatures while paints and tools overflow from a desk that used to be ordered. Look out, sir, was the warning, and the welcome back into the hobby. 5 stars. Core blimey, isn't Fleeemo a master wordsmith? Thank you, my friend. That actually means an awful lot to us. And obviously, welcome back into the warm embrace of the Warhammer hobby. And thank you for supporting the podcast. You are the best of humans, and we salute you. But to do that in greater levels of detail, it can only be Phil.
Thank you, Fleeemo. We appreciate your kind, poetic words, as well spoken by the indomitable Dan. We appreciate what you said. We're glad we got you hooked on that hard stuff. Yes, we are the gateway for Warhammer, but actually we're really probably the gateway for the old man games of Napoleonics and bolt action. When we get older. Expect our podcast to transition into that one day when we're in our pensioner age.
Not long to go now.
No, surprisingly not.
No, absolutely. We'll be there before we know it. Dead soon. Transitional noise. Alright, as was promised, we're now going to talk about Codex Drukhari, the new and final codex, at least as far as we're aware, of Warhammer 40,000 10th edition. Exciting times, eh, Philip?
Ooh, fancy.
Ooh, Warhammer 40,000 10th edition coming to a close. Still haven't announced what it is that's coming next, have they? By now, we should have known about Arcs of Omens or... Psychic Awakenings and all those other happenings, but we're still in the void, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think last time it was a similar thing, where this time, last edition, the boarding actions stuff was... Well, the boarding action stuff wasn't to be seen, but the boxes, which was the Kill Team Into the Dark, Gallo Dark series, was coming out, much like they are with... the current kill team of the Necron labyrinth, I guess, for want of a better word. But I felt like it was more January time or maybe late December when the actual boarding action stuff and the whole Vashtor Arcs of Omen series started, right?
Yeah, I think that was about the time where it kind of kicked into gear, I suppose. Obviously, we've seen the leaks, or not now leaks, because they've been officially confirmed of, like, the Nightbringer and other kind of Necron-related fun. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe they're doing another End Times-y style event that will centre around the Necrons again. Maybe, just maybe, they've confused themselves and thought that they are wrapping up 9th edition and needing to bring an end to... the Psychic Awakening happenings, followed by, obviously the sequences that occurred at the start of 9th with all the Crons rising up, etc.
I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to have, as you say, do that in 9th edition? Like,
oh, yeah, it would have done, but they didn't.
Started with a launch box. Give us Pariah Nexus, wasn't it?
Yep.
A Pariah Nexus campaign book somewhere in the middle, which is what they did do, because they just did all the campaign books in 9th. And then wrap it up with an end series that concludes that story, and then you can just leave that bit alone forever and then go on to a new story. As opposed to what they currently do, which is leave all these threads hanging about forever and just constantly revisit them once in a while.
They're just dogs chasing cars, aren't they? They never know what to do with them when they catch them. They're just chasing them about. Like, we're going to do Pariah Nexus again. Let's go to Armageddon again. Yay!
I mean, I don't mind revisiting the classics. Like Armageddon and historically Cadia was one of those places where it felt like it was a well that you could always visit, because previously the setting was never really moving forwards in time. So you could kind of get away with it because it's like, yeah, cool, the battle is still raging on Armageddon, a couple of months later or whatever. Whereas with this, it feels like they need to progress the timeline. So they do need to wrap some things up. This time it would have maybe great rather than having Necron terrain, you got some really fantastic Tyranid hive terrain, and, they're wrapping up the Fourth Tyrannic War. But maybe we'll see that next edition or the edition.
Yeah, end of 11th edition, they'll remember that they kicked off a tyrannic war and end it there accordingly. But anyway, that's something of a side. As I say, last Codex, the 10th edition that we're aware of. Obviously, there's always a chance because again, within the confines of 9th edition, we still had a couple of codexes end the edition.
You got World Eaters come out.
Yes. So in the ramp up to it, we did definitely get, we had both Astra Militarum and World Eaters, didn't we? In the closing 5 months of night, alongside the Arcs of Omen. So you can never say for sure, but of the factions we know about in the here and now, it's all done. It's the Drukhari. Have they finished on a high, or is it a bit of a disappointment? I guess we'll get into it and let you know. So yeah, let's talk about Codex Drukhari. So as is customary for us, a bit of a chat about the cover. We've spoken about it before. I am of the opinion that Phil is a fan of the central figure. Again, a bit of a kind of ghoulish, very macabre-looking chap covered in spikes and gore and ichor and words of that instance. But yeah, anything you want to elaborate on in terms of the cover, Phil?
Not one to give hugs to, with all these spikes. But
definitely not.
But it looks good. And I think the artwork also features inside, so you can see the sort of unblurred background, and that also looks good. I really like it. It's a strong image, looks fantastic. Proportions are all there,
What do you think the significance of all the hands around his crotch are? Do you think there's any type of little message they're trying to send out there?
There's a bit of a nod, wink, wink if you're thinking about it.
Maybe they were.
Maybe they were. I mean, Games Workshop do love a knob joke, don't they? So every so often, the old, the knob cannons on the Titans and stuff in older editions. So who knows? Maybe it's a little reference to,
Yeah,
something.
Who knows? Anyway, there we go. Yes, many a severed hand upon their tabard in close proximity to their groinal region. But yeah, I think, the central character, not jokes to one side, pretty cool overall, makes a good first striking impression. For me, still kind of the coolest elements are in the background as you see the witches kind of running through and causing havoc. There's a figure of a witch with a kind of like chain style whip, barreling down onto a guardsman, causing all sorts of mischief. And I think that's the kind of imagery, that kind of like thing that I would love to see. I think that would have probably been a stronger central figure, but I think more and more now, at least currently within the current range, it feels sensible that they would seek to accentuate and heavily feature the Cabal aspect of Drukhari more than maybe the witches or the covens, etc. I think leaning into the Cabalites seems like aesthetic.
They're like to me the standard, most central part of the Drukhari army, although it's obviously made up of lots of different components, which the book also goes into great detail explaining. So I think the book layout is actually pretty good for that sort of thing. Very reminiscent of kind of classic codexes, I would say, because there's literally like a page pretty much for most of the main units. Like, what's the lore behind this thing? There's a whole page and a picture dedicated to it, which I feel like I haven't seen for a long time. So that's a nice change. It's a very thick book as well.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, though. I think they benefit from the weight and significance of history, right? In so much as back in the late 2010, 2009 kind of period when they brought back what were then Dark Elder to Warhammer 40,000. So, Dark Elder were first released in 3rd edition. They were one of the starter factions that featured alongside the Space Marines and the launch box of 3rd edition 40k. A bit of a janky old range, definitely paled in comparison to the Plastic Space Marines, multi-part Plastic Space Marines, which were a huge success, alongside the launch of 3rd Ed. The then Dark Elder range was a mixture of, very limited plastics, but lots of different kind of metal sculpts. And yeah, it aged really quickly, and they kind of wallowed in this strange place where they hadn't been updated for ages. And then essentially Jez Goodwin, in collaboration with Phil Kelly, but then also potentially other GW rules writers, lore creators, etc., got to work kind of doing a bit of a love letter to the then Dark Elder and re-released them and essentially overhauled the range and the fluff to kind of embody what we know Drukhari to be today. And I think because of all that exceptional and really amazing work that went into establishing this faction, 15 years ago, we're now in a scenario where the army does have a really good sense of cohesion. The world that they exist in has a really well fleshed out selection of fluff. The whole thing feels really substantial. Like, I think the world of the Drukhari is a very, very well sculpted and very well crafted piece of fiction within Warhammer 40,000. And I think you feel the weight of that in this book because, they just did such a good job of it in the past. It's hard not to be, impressed by it today. I think, it certainly, is a far cry from some of the other kind of more rushed factions that have been introduced into the game since, I'd say. I think that the Drukhari still benefit from having a really, really great, initial kind of effort, admittedly now 15 odd years ago. Which is why I think as well, a lot of people now are asking Phil for a bit of a range refresh on these guys as well. I think people are starting to suggest that this range, given its relative age, is starting to buckle a bit or show some of its, some of its age. But me personally, I love this Drukhari range. I think it's pretty phenomenal where it's at, and it's one of the ranges where I honestly don't feel like they extensively need to overhaul it. I think it should probably remain as is for the foreseeable, in my opinion. But yeah, what's your thought process on all that, pal?
I feel like, some of the sculpts, especially like the infantry stuff, is starting to feel a touch dated. I'm just looking at the racks, for example. I think they could do a lot better job now. Do they need it urgently? Not quite. I would say they're probably better than, the old Cadian infantry that only got replaced a couple of years ago. So it does hold out pretty well, and the vehicles especially so. But I think if they were to do a range refresh, much like how literally everything has had a range refresh to an extent, I'm sure they would do a pretty good job at doing it. So, it feels like it will be inevitable.
It does, to be fair. And I suppose, obviously, if like how has been done for the recent Craftworld Eldari releases, if they're very kind of true to the originals and then start to upscale them, I think we'll see something quite cool. I think as long as they kind of stay true to the original design.
Well, I feel like Elder got a really good range refresh where it's like,
incredible.
Here are your old models, and then we're just redoing them. Whereas I feel like some of them, like Tyranids, for example, got it was a good range refresh, but it was a bit of a tricksy one from Games Workshop because it felt like it was, here's a bunch of new units that look very similar to old units, and we've given them a slightly different name, but you can technically sort of still buy the old ones as well, rather than just doing like for like swapping outs.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well with the NID stuff. If you were like an old school NID player, did they do enough to incentivize you to buy a new box of Hormagaunts, a new box of Gene Stealers, a new box of Termagants, I suppose.
Yeah,
or
I mean, to be
whatever.
fair, those they did just sort of swap out and go, cool, here's some new stuff. But they did here's the new little ones as well.
Yeah, they did do some new little ones also. But I think, obviously, I think within the confines of the NIDs, most NID players who have got those miniatures in their back catalogue will probably just rebase them, etc. Whereas, it's become that thing where, like, in the case of the Eldari, you can still obviously take the old Guardian sculpts, for example, and, put them on the new air quotation marks correct base size, and it's okay. But once you see them against like the newer sculpts, there is a very obvious kind of quality and subtle scale difference where the new Guardians really are a bit more of a visual spectacle. So you are kind of compelled. And also, even though obviously Guardians should be like the bedrock of an Eldari army and feature quite heavily, most people don't have that many of them, so it's not a huge laborious task to replace a couple of units of 10 with the newer sculpts. I felt like with the Gaunts, though, because they were so numerous, it's like, I've got 60 of these. Do I want to buy another 60 in this new, slightly bigger scale? Now you're probably fine. I guess we'll see what happens on that front. On the topic of range refreshes, though, and all the rest of it, it's probably worth also mentioning the stuff that we've lost in this book, because this is Warhammer 40,000's 10th edition, and as such, everything is underpinned by a sense of loss. The Drukhari are no different, and on this occasion we've lost quite a few units actually in the Drukhari. So in totality, Drukhari have gained 2 units and lost many more than that. So in terms of what they've lost from the named character perspective, Urim Rakav, the homunculus master, grand old pappy of homunculus covens, he's no longer available. So now, if you're looking to have an HQ choice for your homunculus covens, you just have the generic homunculus. That's all that's available there. Also, in the world of homunculus covens, we've also lost access to grotesques. Grotesques are gone. No more grotesques. Do you remember the grotesques, Phil?
Were they one of the big floaty things?
No. So the Talos and the Kronos remain. Those are the 2 pain engines. So the grotesques were just ogre-esque racks. So the racks are like the infantry variant, and then the grotesques were the bigger ones.
Right. Okay.
Scale or Terminator scale, if you would. So that's what we lost from the Covens. In terms of the Cabal stuff, we lost the Court of the Archon. So that really eclectic mix of really awesome characters that really added a lot of interesting flavour to the concept of Drukhari. Things like the Sliff, as well as the things.
They were always really cool.
Super cool. But unfortunately, obviously all resin sculpts. So they've...
weren't the Urgles redone for Blackstone Fortress?
They were done for Blackstone Fortress, but I think those alone were not.
I guess they weren't given they weren't ever released as 40k sculpts for Drukhari then.
Correct. Yeah. Well, not. Yeah. I mean, they were released as 40k sculpts via Blackstone Fortress, but never explicitly made available.
Right.
Yeah, as a standalone box for Drukhari.
Probably because they were on a sprue with a bunch of other stuff.
Oh yeah, 100% that. They would have been on there with those weird spittle drone things that they did for whatever. So they were cool, to be fair. So the Cabals have lost access to that, and the Witch Cults have lost access to their Beastmasters. So the Beastmasters and their various beasts have also gone. So your Razorwing Flocks, your what was that furry, many-eyed beast?
Oh, I know the one you mean, yeah.
Yeah. Clawed Fiend or something like that, I think it might have been called. But anyway, long story short, all of that's gone. And the only new stuff that's been given to the Drukhari this time around is Lady Malice, who, without spoiling too much of the review, is something of an auto-include now. I think you're not going to really see many Drukhari armies not including Lady Malice, because she is just redonkulously decent. And in place of the Court of the Archon, we now have the Hand of the Archon, which is the kill team the Cabalite Warrior kill team, they now have a specific data sheet for use in 40k. So you can basically take that Cabalite Warrior squad with all of its different specialisms, its, all the different kind of gear and setup it has there, and run that as kind of like a HQ Archon squad in place of the court. So that's it. So we've lost a few and gained 2. So, not the worst tally in terms of losing minis or losing units and gaining units. But Drukhari are in a really interesting spot at the moment because their HQ choices are their character choices are oddly limited in terms of what they've got access to. So losing a character like Uron Rakoff and then only gaining 1 to kind of replace it is a bit of a weird one. It would have been nice to have seen some other maybe generic characters added to the mixtures, but
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it felt like the miniatures that have gone are a lot of the more sort of thematic but underused elements. It's the equivalent of the how Tau have the sort of ancillary army of like Kroot and other aliens that were always a bit underrepresented, whereas for them they were like, okay, cool, we're going to lean into it and do a whole Kroot release. Well deserved. Whereas here I feel like you could have almost done something similar with all of their strange beasts and aliens, and maybe when the range refresh comes they will come back, because I think Games Workshop does have a habit of going, we're going to remove it effectively temporarily, but they're not going to tell anyone that, which is a bit annoying, but that's just how they work. Well, that's it, isn't it? On the whole, not... It really depends. Obviously, there's a lot of devout Drukhari players in the world today who loved those particular units. I myself have quite a decent collection of converted grotesques, and I used them quite prolifically across the span of 9th edition. So I used grotesque quite a lot then. Hadn't had much of a cause to use them across the span of 10th, but it is a bit of a shame to see them go. Beasts and the Court of the Archon I'm a little less worried about, but I am annoyed that Uron Rakov's gone, because he was a cool sculpt and a cool character who was, there from the beginning of in fact he was there from the very beginning. Uron Rakov existed in the original Dark Elder concept and codex back in the day, so a bit of a bummer to not be able to run him in games right now, but c'est la vie. I'm sure. I'm sure we'll get by as we build up to the next thing. But so that's what we've lost. That's the general state of the affairs. I think that's all the sort of preamble stuff on Drukhari. Unless there was anything you wanted to talk about specifically around the book or the range release, or anything that has intrigued you, Phil. No. Is it worth giving a brief overview? If you're new to 40k, you don't know who the Drukhari are. And what would be your summary other than space pirates?
Well, space pirates is an interesting aspect of them, although they're not really piratical in their nature in so much as they are more of a sort of raiding party, more of a kind of... which is obviously very akin to, the kind of pirates. But then, I always look at, like, the Corsairs as the Eldari pirate sort of element.
Pirates. Yeah, well, they're like the nice ones, the Disney pirates, not the more brutal ones that are enslaving people.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the kind of point of difference, I suppose, between Pirates of the Caribbean and Pirates of Somalia, shall we say? I think that's the thing with the Corsairs. They lean more into their naval kind of element, because they're obviously a force of Eldari that traverse space, etc. Whereas the Drukhari themselves are a really interesting faction. So the broad strokes is, in order to understand the Drukhari, you have to understand the fall and the events that basically led to the near destruction of the Eldari race. Essentially, Eldari were the most powerful thing in the universe, and they got up to some silly nonsense, right? Imagine all the most crazy elements of what you might find on the hub and then times that by 1 million, and you kind of had the general status quo.
They basically just had too much fun.
They had too much fun. So much fun, in fact, that they had created the god of Slaanesh, essentially the potent psychic kind of presence mark of the Eldari, when kind of, enjoying the various things that they were.
The god of fun.
The god of fun, absolutely. So that's how that went. Now, in advance of that whole thing happening, basically, many Eldari kind of got wind of it and were like, oh, hello, this isn't a good idea. And those basically became the craft worlders, and they effectively fled on these craft worlds to essentially get away from it. Whereas the Drukhari were so kind of debauched and so very fun that they actually took to the webway to essentially create the city of Komarov, where they basically enjoyed themselves exponentially. And effectively what happened was Slaanesh is birthed into real space, tears a hole in reality, creates the kind of precursor to the Citrix Maledictum, which was the Eye of Terror. The Eye of Terror is torn into reality, and effectively, in so doing, many, many Eldari souls are consumed by Slaanesh, except for those fleeing in craft worlds, and bizarrely, those hidden within the webway. Thus, the residents of Komarov. And effectively, the way it works is that Eldari preserve their souls, or rather the craft worlders preserve their souls through this soul stone technology that essentially means that when they die, their soul is entombed within the soul stone to prevent it basically being fed to Slaanesh. The idea is
it's basically backed up on a hard drive, right?
Yes, absolutely. And basically what the Drukhari are doing is that they are maintaining themselves and giving themselves longevity by consuming sensation. Typically fear, pain, anguish. They love it, basically. That's their whole thing. So they've learned over time that they're well into just causing people a lot of harm, a lot of fear, because they feed on that, and that makes them stronger, and that's how they maintain themselves and keep themselves from basically being consumed by Slaanesh. So that's the broad strokes.
For them, is it like, well, Slaanesh can't consume our souls if we just don't die? So
that's essentially the way they look at it.
If they die in like combat, does their soul get consumed by Slaanesh then?
Oh yeah, well that's the fate of all Eldari. Eventually, you can't avoid it. Unfortunately, Slaanesh will love them. That's the thing. Like it is hungry for Eldari souls. Loves them.
No.
Yum, 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 yum. And that's, so they essentially, they indulge in a lot of debauched activity to kind of keep themselves from dying. They're also really not into psychic stuff, which is really interesting because it's kind of like the yin-yang aspect of it, because obviously the craft worlders use these kind of sanctioned, very kind of prolific psychers in the form of the seers, and they use these seers to kind of guide their futures and help them navigate all the different kind of paths and essentially allow them to kind of go on existing. For the Drukhari, that stuff is well out. It's like, no, none of that here, mate. The use of psychic powers is seen as a means by which to attract demons and Slaanesh towards you, and as a result, they're just not into it. So, it's a really interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever really clocked that. Because obviously I only play against them on the tabletop, and I've never really, gone, oh yeah, they don't have psychics. Yeah, nuts.
Yeah, they have technology that is indistinguishable from magic because they're crazy high-tech Eldari, but yeah, they don't have anything magic-esque, although, again, they've used their incredible skills to kind of have, sort of dominion over things like death. Like, obviously, the homunculus covens are so incredibly, like, good at maintaining and flesh crafting and doing all this crazy stuff. Again, Euron Rakov is often described as becoming dead as if going on a holiday. Essentially, it's like, gonna have a week away in the afterlife. That'll be nice, and then come back again. So yeah, it's a really interesting faction. It's got a lot of really interesting things. And what I love about the way that the rules team and the writing staff at GW fleshed out Komarov is all the myriad of different kind of factions in infighting. And essentially, the last thing I'll say on the Drukhari in terms of the fluff is basically the main story, at least historically, is always told through the perspective of Vect. So Vect is essentially the high Archon, the top banana of Komarov. And the story of him is that he basically rose to prominence from the lowest of the low. So it's essentially a rags to riches story of this devious, malicious, incredibly cunning leader who, through all of his prowess, essentially rose from the streets to the height of Komarov society. And that was a really interesting narrative that they've used over the years to kind of really kind of give you a sense of flavour, because as you follow Vec's sort of, progression to the top of the pyramid, you really start to get a feel for all the myriad, nuances of Komarov. And the city does feel really alive, from everything from, the Kabbalites and the kind of noble structure and the idea of this kind of, high society element of the Force, to the witch cults and the way that they perform in the arenas and provide entertainment, and they're almost like celebrity status, to the various gangs that fly through like kind of the upper layers on their jet bikes or on their skyboards, performing incredible acts of whatever, or all this sort of stuff that they've added in, the covens, all these different things, even things like the scourges, who are these warriors with like wings grafted to their bodies, their narrative and how they kind of exist in the world, and the dark, more sort of elements of things like the Mandarin. It's just a really well fleshed out world with some really interesting characters and stories. I think Drukhari, in a way, is like the time where GW really kind of explored and expanded the idea of the Eldari to something much more compelling and interesting. Because I think the problem is with Craftworld, this craft world is quite bland. But it's by design, right? Like the craft world is
they're like the
Ultramarines,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Ultramarines in 40k parts, but yeah,
Space
like
Mormons.
They are like Space Mormons. They've basically gone away and they've gone, I found this book and it tells me that there's an extra bit of the Bible and I'm going to go off and I'm going to live by these strict rules. It works for them and good on them, but the Drukhari really kind of adds a little bit more of a kind of insight into what they were, and then
a Las Vegas element to it.
It's definitely, it's definitely the Vegas of the universe. Absolutely, the Black Library, I guess, would be. I don't know what that would be by comparison. You got more kind of noble, kind of whatever. That's like, but yes, no, Komarov is definitely Vegas, old Vegas before it was too expensive. Not like Vegas today. It's just a playground for billionaires now, isn't it? Although I suppose that's just the whole planet nowadays. But what can you do? Good. So I think that's the fluff. Is there any other points you want to raise about the background of the Drukhari, given that you probably didn't know anything? Was there any other things you wanted to say?
No, I think that's enough. If someone didn't know anything, that's a decent primer.
Yeah. Look, this oversimplification is to just look at them and go, they're elder gone bad. But in a way, they're not, because actually what the craft worlders represent is Eldari gone good. They're more kind of, they are definitely a more extreme adaptation of what Eldari society used to be. This is, obviously a stag weekend that never ended on Komarov, right? But the thing is that, they're an interesting insight into the way that they were before. And again, I was really excited when they brought the Ynnari into the mixture, because I thought we were going to start to see a kind of more kind of middle ground between the kind of pious, noble, very almost, as I say, monk-esque craft worlders, and then the debauched Drukhari. I thought there was a real opportunity there for them to strike a balance between those in the form of the Ynnari, but they haven't really fulfilled that potential yet. But hopefully they will one day, although everyone's saying at the moment they're just going to do Exodites, which is fine. I'd be excited for them to do Exodites, but...
True. Ynnari, great in concept and actually story-wise, but they haven't got the nugget of excitement as elves on dinosaurs. So
Yes.
I could see why they would do that first, and then at some point maybe realise what they're doing with Ynnari. I mean, I think it's just one last thing. It's probably worth pointing out, obviously, I don't know if you've already covered it, but basically Dark Elder Drukhari is made up of like several sort of sub-factions in a way. You've got your... you got your homunculi, you got your Calabites, and then you got your witch cults, right? Is they the three, or is there more?
Those are the three, and then you've got essentially Blades for Hire, which represents a few of the other kind of stratas of their society. So mandrakes, the scourges are examples of these kind of warrior functions that don't really reside in any one part of the structure.
And then the ones I got rid of, which were like the other alien species, what would they fit under?
So the Beastmaster was typically a byproduct of the witch cult. So the idea was the Beastmaster was kind of like an aspect of the gladiatorial game. So the idea, like you think about the old gladiatorial games in Rome, they've got some lions, they've got, I mean, if you watch the recent Gladiator movie, they've got sharks.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, they did.
But I mean, that was mad.
And monkeys.
And monkeys, absolutely. God, yeah, those were vicious beasts in that film. Anyway, the point is that, yeah, that was their whole function. They basically would breed and use these animals to obviously participate in gladiatorial games. So that's where they would sit. The homunculus, not the homunculus, sorry, the Court of the Archon featured some beast-like characters, but they were sentient alien races. But the idea of that is that Drukhari themselves were so untrustworthy that a Archon would have a better time recruiting a Sliff to be its bodyguard than an actual Drukhari, because it couldn't really trust another Drukhari, whereas it could sort of trust a evil snake monster from another dimension. So, you know, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, in closing, in terms of fluff, I think Drukhari is a real triumph of the Games Workshop creative process, and I think when they released this thing 15 years ago, it really spoke to the kind of process and the kind of power of Games Workshop's ability, at least back then, to build worlds and excite people about their faction and setting. And, you know, that kind of attention to detail and that kind of effort really has gone a long way. And I think that's why there's so many die-hard fans of this faction today. Drukhari definitely unlocks and evokes a lot of passion, enthusiasm from players. And again, when I critique things like Votan, for example, and where they're at with that currently, it's fair that I feel like with things like that, you can tell that they just haven't quite had the opportunity to really give that world the sort of attention to detail and time that they were able to give things like this in the past. So,
they've definitely tried to replicate the sort of sub-faction element, though. So with them, you've got the Chthonian Berserker type, then you've got the standard guys, and then you've got the Einkir Prospectors, the guys with the jackets, like the Outrider type people. Yeah. Like, they all feel like several different like groups within the whole of Votan, and that feels very similar to this, but also similar to like how they've divvied up the marks of armor from, you know, Phobos and Gravis and stuff like that for Primaris. So it feels like that's the thing they're trying to do with some of those newer factions that we've seen.
Yeah, it's quite commonplace as well within AOS, right? Like, you see a lot of armies now that have really diverged beyond just their one kind of construct. It's like they like to give these races, these worlds, a bit more flavour by adding in lots of other elements. So that's the thing with Drukhari. The idea is basically an Archon will essentially be like, I've got a thing I need to do, usually in real space. I'm going to assemble a raiding group made up of all these different entities that I'm going to use my influence to essentially bring to bear. So the idea is that typically an Archon, through a multitude of different methods, will bring together a force of Drukhari, and they'll typically go into real space, typically to go and raid stuff, right? That's the term, real space raiders. That's kind of their sort of modus operandi. They're typically going into real space and kidnapping people, or grabbing resources, or doing all sorts of nefarious deeds. That's their That's their function. And it makes them a really interesting antagonist, because you can insert Drukhari into lots of interesting gameplay scenarios. And again, they have a really interesting function, I find, when you use them in like campaign systems, because they've got all these like fun kind of added layers that they bring to the gameplay. So when like you've got the Imperium fighting against Chaos on a world for supremacy, and then you just have the Drukhari turning up going,
yeah,
I'm going to steal this.
They're very easy to just insert into any sort of setting or campaign or situation, basically.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, well, that's fluff. Let's get into rules. So the army rule is power from pain. Phil, what is power from pain? I have never heard of it.
Well, I hope you have, because you played this.
No, I know.
But, yeah, power from pain, you have pain ability. So all Drukhari units have a pain ability tagged with the word pain. Pain abilities only apply to the unit while it is empowered. If your army faction is Drukhari, which I would hope it would be, you can empower units from your army with pain abilities by spending pain tokens. It also says, as a designer's note, you can also spend pain tokens to activate additional effects in certain other rules, such as enhancements and stratagems. You then have gaining pain tokens. So if your army faction, again, is Drukhari, you gain pain tokens as follows. So you get 1 token at the start of each of your command phases. You get 1 pain token each time an enemy unit is destroyed, and you get 1 pain token each time an enemy unit fails a battle shock test. So killing enemy units and making them fail battle shock tests, is the things you're aiming for, and then you get 1 in your command phase, which is your gimme. Each time you gain a pain token, keep it to one side. This is your pain token pool. Each time you spend a pain token, reduce your pain token pool by the same amount. Okay, that all makes sense. Then lastly, you have empowered through pain. Each pain ability will state when you can spend pain tokens to empower that unit. When you do until the end of that phase, that unit is empowered, and all pain abilities it has take effect. So it's only to the end of the phase. While an attached unit is empowered, the pain abilities of all leader and bodyguard units in that unit take effect. You do not need to spend additional pain tokens to activate each of those pain abilities. They do give you an example here. So it says at the start of your charge phase, you spend 1 pain token to empower a unit of witches. The unit becomes empowered, and so its acrobatic gladiator's ability takes effect until the end of the phase, the succubus leading the unit, and so its live agility ability also takes effect at the end of the phase. No additional pain tokens are required to activate that ability as well. Okay, that's feels straightforward.
Yeah, it's good they clarified it. I think the thing that's intriguing to me about that is again, in the way it's written, implies that there could be pain abilities that cost greater sums of pain. But typically, to the best of my knowledge, they all cost 1. So yeah, I almost feel like there could have been like a sequencing thing that could have been helpful, where you spend the pain at, like, in the command phase, you distribute it, and then it remains in effect throughout that turn. And I think that would have been a really good way of dealing with it. And then if you have defensive abilities, it's the same deal. You can spend the pain in your opponent's command phase, but do it command phase based, and then there's a nice simple kind of allocation process that you go through. But yeah, it's interesting with the way that it works. Also, as well, the thing that's sort of different about this from how pain used to work in the past, basically old pain used to start with an amount of it. So you'd have like free pain at the start. And also there were some nuances in terms of when that pain became available, whereas now it's quite instantaneous, which is totally fine, in my opinion. So basically,
it feels slightly counterintuitive, because it's pain you're giving to other people as opposed to pain that you're receiving yourself.
Yeah, it's strange, I suppose, in the way that they sort of worded it and done it. But ultimately, the way it kind of works is that typically, yeah, once you give a unit the pain, I just think, yeah, to me, the way they've written it implies that there's a varying sum that's going to come into effect.
It feels like it could be. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you just sort of feel like, oh, you could have just been like, come to the universe thing. But one note I will make, though, about pain and its ability, I love the fact that they clearly designate it, iconography and symbols, and make it clear what is an ability that benefits from pain. Now, they don't do it universally with enhancements and stratagems, I'm sorry to say. But at least on the data sheets, it's very clear what I'm going to be spending pain to get. Which was different from Votan, because Votan's prosperity points, or whatever they were called, the Votan points. Yeah, whatever they were. I always forget the name of it now. But yeah, those points weren't very clearly stated. But at least here, in the way they've designed this book, it's obvious what is beneficial.
It's been a coloured box with an icon, as you say. Nothing on enhancements and strats, which is a bit of a shame, but maybe that's a bit more limited in what they can do.
Yeah, I get it. But anyway, so as a whole, good rule, works well. Let's get into some of the detachments. So the first of the detachments is Real Space Raiders. Real Space Raiders is essentially what you would call the generic detachment. Not necessarily the strongest, but certainly, relatively flexible. So effectively, the deal here is the idea is an Archon has effectively brought together a bunch of different aspects of Komarov. So effectively, if you look at the army being broken down to those three different verticals, pillars, buckets, whatever you want to call them, you essentially have the Cabal, the Witches, and the Homunculus Covens. So you're rewarded for taking units from each of those sections. So effectively, you take an Archon and a unit of Catalite Warriors, that's one chunk. You take a Succubus and a unit of Witches, that's another chunk. And then if you take a Homunculus and a unit of Rax, that is a third of the chunks available to you. And then essentially for each of those, you are rewarded with 2 pain tokens at the start of the game. So if I had 1 Archon, 1 unit of Caballine Warriors, 1 Succubus, 1 unit of Witches, 1 Homunculus, and 1 unit of Rax in my army, I would start the game with 6 pain. That's basically how it works. So it's a great way of kickstarting the pain train, so to speak.
That makes sense.
So it's a pretty good ability. In my experience of playing the army thus far, I don't know what the heck you're going to do with that much pain from the get-go. That's too much pain. Because, it makes
you don't lose it, though. So you
don't lose it. No.
When you want to spend it.
Yeah, but you're going to struggle to spend it. That's the problem. That's the thing. It's like it's almost like I've got 6 pain, so basically for the rest of the game, I'm probably never going to have to care about whether or not I have pain spare to do stuff, because obviously you're going to get 5 pain from just the start of every battle round, and then every time you kill anything or make them fail a battle shock test, you're going to get pain again. So it's one of those things. You're going to have a lot of pain.
Yeah. What's interesting is this is basically the old school Force Org chart, sort of forcing you to, it's not forcing you, but it's heavily encouraging you to take certain things to build up a force that visually looks thematic. So yeah, that's interesting.
It's a massive plus point. I quite like it as a detachment and as a concept.
For sure.
It doesn't necessarily be the strongest one, but it's a good starting point. Do you want to pick out any particular enhancements that take your fancy?
I will take Labyrinthine Cunning because I am nothing if not cunning. I am not an Archon model, but that's what I need to be to have this. At the start of your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, you can do one of the following. You can spend 1 pain token and gain a CP, or you can roll a d6 and on a 4-up, you gain a CP. So that's quite good, I think. You can, if you're not desperate for one, you can just get 50-50 it. And then, but if you really need an extra CP, you can spend one of your 6 pain tokens that you gain at the start of the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not too bad. I mean, again, obviously a good function for the additional pain that you've got access to. I really like Dark Vitality. I think it's probably the strongest of the abilities here, which is the bearer's unit is always empowered. So essentially, you do not need to spend any pain tokens to activate the unit's pain abilities.
That's true, especially when each pain ability only lasts for a phase. So if there's, I don't know because I've not looked at it, but if there's an ability that works in multiple phases, for example, shooting and combat, that's effectively 2 lots of pain tokens you'd have to spend every turn, whereas this is potentially anywhere between like 5 to 10 pain tokens of free stuff if you were doing it every single phase.
Yeah, it just feels like a nice, easy win. I'm never completely convinced which unit I would put it on necessarily. I always sort of lean into the homunculus and its racks. Their pain ability being that the homunculus can bring back D3 plus 1 racks if it's empowered through pain. So being able to do that constantly doesn't feel like a negative. The ability that the racks themselves get isn't humongously strong, but it's additional attacks, which is totally cool. So yeah, that would probably be what I would lean into. But yeah, Dark Vitality is cool. Any particular stratagem you wanted to talk about, my friend?
Yeah, I'm going to go for one of the 2 CP options, of which there's 2. I'm going for the one that sounds the coolest, Raid and Fade.
Strong.
Getting a certain type of buzz cut with that one. So it happens at the end of your shooting phase. You can select up to 2 Calabite warrior units from your army, or 1 other Drukhari unit from your army, excluding scourges and aircraft. The effect is that each of those units can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. You cannot select units that are within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Until the end of that turn, those units are not eligible to declare a charge. So it's the old school, like Fire and Fade, I guess, for traditional craft worlds.
Yeah, super strong ability, very, very useful. I suppose, given that there are 2 CP stratagems, I'll go with the Insensible to Pain. Your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase, just after enemy unit is selected its target, 1 homunculus covenant unit from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more of these attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is allocated to a model in that unit, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic, which again is massive when you consider that racks now are 2 wounds. So being -1 on them is pretty meaningful. But homunculus covenant units also do extend to the Talos and Kronos as well. So being -1 damage on
big
those
boys.
is also,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's a healthy one. So on the whole, Real Space Raiders is just kind of a general toolkit. A pretty good starting point. Sky Splinter Assault is the next one. This was the one that more people were leaning into until they brought in the Reaper's Wager, which is the combination of Drukhari and Harlequins. But tell us about the Sky Splinter Assault, Phil.
I'm guessing this one is all the transports.
Correct, yeah, that's the one.
The detachment rule is Reign of Cruelty. Each time a Drukhari unit from your army disembarks from a transport until the end of the turn, ranged weapons equipped by models in that disembarking unit have ignores cover, and melee weapons equipped by models in that disembarking unit have a lance ability. At least it's not sustained hits or lethal hits. So it's great to see a bit of rules diversity going on here with stuff coming out of transports.
Yeah, the Sky Splinter Assault has been one of the consistently strong options for Drukhari. It was basically the detachment that they added, over a year ago now, when Drukhari were performing relatively poorly on the competitive.
It wasn't the Grotmus one. It was just one of their occasional freebie ones that they did.
Yeah. They basically were like, Drukhari aren't doing too well. We're going to give them some points reductions, and we're going to give them access to this really quite cool detachment. And it's got lots of really great utility and always works quite well. So it's a good option, I would say. I think it's still strong today as it was before. In terms of enhancements, I'll go with Nightmare Shroud, because it's an extremely powerful enhancement. So it's a Drukhari model only, shock horror. Each time the bearer's unit disembarks from a transport until the end of the turn, enemy units cannot use the fire overwatch stratagem to shoot at the bearer's unit. So you can't be overwatched, which is massively powerful for an incredibly fragile glass cannon army like the Drukhari. So get out of a transport. You're obviously going to benefit from Lance, assuming you're a melee unit, or you're going to be ignoring cover if you're a shooting unit. But you're not going to be Overwatch. So if people are rocking Land Raider Redeemers or other kind of flamer weapons, you can fight them with relative impunity, which is always helpful.
That's true. Yeah, that was a good one. I mean, that was one I would have picked. So instead, I'm going to pick Spiteful Raider. So Drukhari model only each time the bearer's unit destroys an enemy unit in the fight phase. If that enemy unit was within range of one or more objective markers when the bearer's unit was selected to fight, you gain 1 additional pain token, which is quite nice. A way of getting extra.
It's really helpful.
Pain tokens, yeah.
Because I think in this instance, because there's no additional means within the core rule set, as in the core detachment rule, to gain additional pain, this enhancement's pretty quintessential because you want to obviously unlock additional pain with it. Because obviously, in the case of Real Space Raiders, you've probably got too much, but this does definitely run the risk of potentially having too little. So it's quite helpful to get that going. In terms of stratagems, I quite like Wraith-like Retreat. I think it's a very strong ability that really actually adds a bit more viability to the Raider. The Raider isn't necessarily innately as strong as the Venom for various reasons, but this makes it slightly more viable if you're going to take a big unit of 10 incubi, for example. So 1 Drukhari infantry unit from your army is the target. Your unit can make a normal or fallback move, but unless it's a which unit, it must end that move wholly within 3 horizontally and 5 vertically of a friendly Drukhari transport and must embark within that transport at the end of that move. Otherwise, it cannot make that move. So basically, the unit can make a normal or fallback move, and it happens at the end of fight phase. So you fight, and even if you haven't killed the thing that you're fighting against, you just fall back and get back in your transport, back into your safety net, which is crazy useful, to say the very least.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I'm going to pick Vicious Blades for 1 CP. So it's a fight phase just after a Drukhari transport from your army has selected its targets. After the transport has fought, select 1 enemy unit that was the target of 1 or more of those attacks and roll 1d6 for each model embarked within your transport, adding 1 to the result if that embarked model is a Rax model. For each 5+, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. And that's quite good. So they're poking their little daggers out the side of the boat, stabbing people. I assume is it 10 models that's the maximum transport capacity you could have?
It's 11. So
it's 11 because it's 10 plus a character.
10 plus a character. Bear in mind the Raider also has an ability where the Rax bolster its melee profile as well. So if you've got Rax embarked within a Raider transport, you add additional attacks to the Raider's melee profile.
Can you what is it called where you do the mortal wounds on the charge?
Oh yeah, you can tank shock as well.
Can they tank shock even though they're not tanks?
Yeah, they're vehicles. It's just a vehicle. Yeah, you don't. I don't think that. I think tank is a keyword, but tank shock's legit.
I mean, they do have a big spiked ram on the front of these little boats.
They certainly do. I mean, don't get me wrong. You'd be spamming a lot of stratagems to sort of.
Well, I guess 2 CP to do technically max 12 mortal wounds. But if it's something that you want to sort of tie up, but also mortal wound something to death if it's only got a few wounds left and it's a bit tricksy, just do that.
I quite like as well, and although we don't normally talk about more stratagems, I was also going to say that Swooping Mockery is a fun stratagem as well, because it basically allows your transport to do a normal move up to 6 inches. So it's not an extraordinarily long move,
it's like a redeploy in Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that's cool about it is you're thinking about, because again, the thing with Venoms is you can re-embark into Venoms at the end of the fight phase if you're wholly within range of them. And obviously these transports again, obviously with the stratagem, you can get back into the raider as well. But if you used pounce not pounce on the prey, sorry, if you use Wraith Like Retreat, get into your transport, someone then tries to move towards it to cause some mischief, and you reactive move an additional 6 inches away, which might save you from potential challenges.
Yeah, so well, true, especially if they're only just sort of at the 8-9 inch mark, and you get to a flat 6. It's not a D6. And what's great about those strats, because I've had it happen to me before. A guy called Stephen at No Retreat last year, because he had Grey Knights that basically have this ability, but also I had a similar thing with my Thunder Warriors / Custodes, where when you shoot at them, one unit can make a D6 move. So it's great for just mind gaming your opponent. So every time someone moves towards one of your transports in Drukhari, you're like, just remember, if you move within 9 inches, I can move them 6 inches. Do you want to do that? And sometimes they'd be like, okay, I won't, and I'll just do the 9 inch charge, and it makes it a lot more difficult for them. So it's great for those it's basically forces your opponent to think about and make choices about when they're going to trying to do something, basically, which I quite like.
Yeah, I would say in closing with this detachment, I'd say it's the complexity of running this detachment is resource management. In the past, when people were running this with the old Drukhari, we had access to a lot more pain from the outset. So managing your pain is going to be part of it, but also managing your stratagem yield, your CP is also a big part of it as well. You definitely need to set up for a significant go turn, and you need to really kind of maximize your output in that one turn. So you need to kind of lay some really good traps and really maximize it, because you need those resources to get in and get out and prepare for a kind of second wave, as it were, because you can very easily be caught short with that detachment because of the emphasis on resource management and the relative lack of access to them. But overall, I think it's still a strong detachment. I like it a lot. Next of the detachments is the Spectacle of Spite. This is basically the witch detachment. So witches love drugs. That's the main takeaway from this. I mean, I've been to a few summer and winter solstices in my life. I can attest that the witches do love their drugs. So yeah. At the start of your command phase, select which combat drug will be active for your army until the start of your next command phase. To do so, either select one from the list below. You cannot select the same combat drug more than once per battle, or randomly select 2 by rolling 2d6. When doing so randomly, combat drugs you have previously selected can become active again. But if you randomly select one that is already active for your army, it has no additional effect. So essentially, you're going to be rolling 2d6 all the time for this. You're not going to pick it, unless, of course, there's a particular situation where you need that particular thing. But from the outset, you're going to just be rolling the 2d6 because it's just, the better way of playing it. Or you might pick something at the start that is... Anyway, long story short is it's situational, but most of the time you're going to roll the 2d6. Essentially...
I don't know about that. I mean, turn 1, you'd be like, cool, I want... to add 2 inches to my movement.
Yeah.
Second turn, I want +1 attacks.
And then from there on, maybe you start doing the rolls.
Yeah, I mean, they're all quite good though. So, maybe you will be like, I'll take 2. And, if I get +1 weapon skill, +1 toughness, great. If I get +1 toughness, +1 strength, yeah, it's all good. +1 attack. Yeah. I mean, the only one... All right, let's read through them before we get to spoilers.
Yeah. Look, rather than reading all the various names, if you roll a 1, you add 1 to your attack characteristics for witch cults. These are all just for witch cult units, by the way, which are obviously the witches, the succubuses, the Reaver jet bikes, and the... why am I forgetting the name of the guys on the skyboard?
I was going to say the boogie boards, as you like to call them.
The boogie boards.
Yeah, the green goblins.
That's good. Yeah, so it's the Reaver jet bikes and the Hellions. There we are. Words I've forgotten there. Right, anyway, so get back to the page. Oh, God, where is it gone? Yeah, so if you roll a 1, you get +1 attack. If you roll a 2, you get +2 in move. If you roll a 3, you improve your sorry, you improve the AP. Oh no, the weapon skill.
Weapon skill.
Yes, so you improve your weapon skill by 1. If you roll a 4, you add 1 to your toughness. If you add a 5, you add 1 to your strength. And if you roll a 6, you get 2 abilities. You add 1 to your ballistic skill, and you also improve your leadership characteristic.
Oh, because originally I was like, it's just leadership and probably OC. Why would you want that one? But actually, +1 ballistic skill is
It's
pretty
also
good.
not that great for witches, but you might, if you've got a lot of Reaver jet bikes, it can be super useful because they do have a decent payload. So, yeah, there are useful instances where you want to have additional ballistic skill, but it probably isn't the most useful of abilities. Thus, they obviously added the leadership characteristic element to it as well. But yeah, so an interesting set of abilities, and certainly if you're going to be leaning heavily into witches, obviously a really, really good detachment for that. Any enhancements that you wanted to talk about, my friend?
I'm going to go for the most complicated one to pronounce, Pharmacoplex.
Oh, old Pharmacoplex.
Or Fex. Pharmacoplex. It could be either. It could be
I'm
a hard,
far too dyslexic to have an opinion
or a soft one. So succubus model only. At the start of your command phase, after selecting which combat drugs will be active for your army, roll 1d6 and consult the drugs list. The result rolled applies to the bearer's unit until the start of your next command phase, in addition to any others that you might have for your army. If you randomly select one that is already active for your army, it has no additional effect. So that is a bit of a downside. But it's at the start of every command phase. That's pretty cool. That's really good.
Yeah, so an extra drug, more drugs than you can shake a stick at. Good times. I'll go with the Parapet or Parapat of Torments, the Parababa of Torments. I don't know what the pronunciation here is, but we'll move on. Enemy units cannot use the Firewall Overwatch stratagem to shoot at the bearer's unit. Very good ability, basically. No idea what the pronunciation of it is, but not being able to be targeted by Overwatch.
Maybe, but
who knows? They've really got their thesaurus out in this particular.
They do like them either real words or made up words, but
it is their way in that sense. Any stratagems you want to talk about?
I'm going to go for a challenge met. It is one of the two CP ones again. It's at the end of your opponent's movement phase. You select one witch cult unit from your army that would be able to declare a charge if it were your charge phase. Select one enemy unit within 9 inches of your unit that will set up on the battlefield this phase, or that entered a normal move or advanced move this phase. Your unit now declares a charge that targets only that enemy unit, and you can resolve that charge. Even if the charge is successful, you do not receive any charge bonuses at that turn, so you don't get fights first.
That's a whole heap of words, isn't it?
You basically get heroic intervention in your opponent's movement phase when someone ends 9 inches close to you. That is a hilarious counter play mind game that you can do.
Yeah.
And that is obviously on any unit that's a witch cult unit. So that's deadly. And obviously, because it could be a unit that's a shooting one that wasn't even intending to charge you. So that can be really good. And then you can also still heroic intervene in your charge phase, assuming people are charging you, which they might not want to. So, yeah, that seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's universally useful for sure. I mean, in terms of other stratagems, I'll go with acrobatic display just because, it's broadly useful. Essentially, happens in your opponent's shooting phase just after enemy unit has been selected as its target. One witch cult unit from your army that was selected as the target attacked. It has a 5+ invulnerable save till the end of phase. Not remarkably strong, but, I mean, exponentially better than the 6+ invuln that you come with as standard. So,
It's been not bad.
Yeah, I mean, you've got low armor saves across the board. Your units are obviously pointed accordingly in terms of their relative lack of durability. So giving them a a 5-up invuln is actually, by their standards, pretty robust, but probably not one you're going to use a whole heap. Cool, yeah, so that was the Spectacle of Spite. I think there is some play in that detachment. I think it's got some good options, but I think you've basically, obviously, got to be a real fan of the assortment of options that makes up the Witch Cult, and obviously be looking to, obviously use that stuff specifically. Again, the problem is with this stuff, I always find, is there just isn't enough miniatures in that selection to really make it viable. Like if they still had access to the beasts, maybe it would be more of an option, but you're going to struggle to really kind of flesh out and fill up 2,000 points of a Drukhari army with just witch units.
It was the same thing we were talking about yesterday, I believe, where I was like, the problem with some detachments, both in Age of Sigmar and in 40k, is they encourage skew list building to just focus on one particular sub-faction or a particular set of miniatures, which doesn't encourage a sort of relatively balanced army list of a bit of everything. But then that's what that sort of first detachment is all about. And as you say, it only really works when there's enough models in it. Because wasn't there one with the Chaos Space Marines that was all about bikes? And it's like, yeah, cool, there's 2 different bike units and that's it.
Well, not even 2, there's 1.
There's one, but maybe it also affected things like...
Oh yeah, did it?
They don't even have
really
land speeders, do they? It was very much it was a bike-themed list, and it's like they don't really have enough to make an army out of this. So if you're taking a detachment that maybe affects 30, 40, 50% of your army, that sort of feels bad, because it just ultimately means, well, really I should be making it maximise and work with every unit that I've got in my army. So it encourages potentially not bad builds, I don't want to say that, but yeah, skew lists that can be sometimes unfun to play against, depending on the type of skew list that it is.
But also, yeah, because it just requires as well that you end up in a situation where you have to maximise these squads, right? So again, to get the most out of it, you might be like,
buy lots of duplicate units.
Yeah, I've got to buy 30 Hellions, and it just becomes a bit. It's like, do you really want that in your collection? Really, I kind of like.
If that was your army and that was your theme from the off, and there's a detachment that allows you to play with just witches, I'm like, brilliant, but. What you shouldn't really be doing is going, well, I've got a generic Drukhari army and I want enough models to play all of these detachments, so therefore my army needs to be 10 times as big as it would normally be otherwise. That would be a bit mad. Yeah,
I think it would be pragmatic for most people to kind of steer clear of these specific, or at least this and the next one we're going to talk about, the Covenite Cortari something, Coterie?
I would assume it's Coterie, but it doesn't have a U under court. But Coterie sounds like it's some kind of china that you drink tea from. Yes, yeah. But this is basically the Homunculus Covens detachment. Why don't you tell us what it does, Phil? It's Stitch Flesh Abominations. This is quite a short one. Each time an attack targets a Homunculus Coven unit from your army, if the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Very strong.
I mean, yeah, really strong. And very obvious in terms of what its function is. So...
Because those, the big Tanoses, what is their toughness going to be?
They used to be toughness 7, I want to say. Oh, no, they were 7 wounds before. Maybe they were toughness 9. Here we go. Sorry, fumbling through. They are toughness 7 still. Yeah, toughness 7 with 7 wounds.
That's pretty good.
And they still have access to Feel No Pain. They're one of the few things with Feel No Pain 5+.
That is good, yeah. And I mean, if they're going to be shot at by Lascans and multi-melters, it's like, cool, those 3s become 4s, which is, a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, you take them in units of 2, so you could have a maximum of 6 of those, and you could have a maximum of 3 Kronos. Not that you would want 3 Kronos necessarily, but yeah, I think going back to what we were talking about with the witch detachment, this is again the problem of how much stuff would you have to have in order to actually be able to kind of run this, this list effectively? Because basically you're talking about 4 data sheets: a homunculus, Rax, Talos, and Kronos. That's it. So
I mean, if you're doing like 1,000-point games, maybe it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you're playing smaller Strike Force games, 1,000-point games, 100%. I think this is a viable, fun option, and also expands on the combat patrol. So the new combat patrol is based around homunculus governs. So yeah, if you're scaling up from a combat patrol to a 1,000-point game of 40k, there's definitely some viability here. But I think in a 2,000-point game, it starts to get a bit stretched. It's too little butter across too much bread, I would say. But yeah, in terms of enhancements, I mean, I'll go with Master Regenerist because it sounds fun. It's homunculus models only. Each time the bearer uses its Fleshcraft ability, you can return up to D3 plus 3 destroyed bodyguard models in the bearer's unit instead of D3 plus 1. So essentially you are getting anywhere between, getting an extra 2. So anywhere between 4 and 6 racks returning, which is a big plus, by the way. That's a huge difference overall, I would say. So yeah, really, really strong.
Yeah, I will go for Master Nemesis.
You got Nana out of that? I wouldn't know, but there we go.
I think I was looking at the second word rather than the first.
Fair.
It's a homunculus model only. The bearer's weapons have an anti-beast 2+ and an anti-monster 4+. Now,
situational.
Anti-monster, quite interesting. Anti-beast. Are there many in the game? Not
there's
many.
A few.
As many as there are fortifications.
Well, exactly.
There's thematically great.
Kroot hounds, are they beasts?
I would have thought so, yeah. And some of the big, what are they called, the squig rider type orc people.
No, they're cavalry, aren't they? They're not cavalry, sorry, they're mounted.
Oh, really? Surely they would also be
mounted.
a beast.
No, I think they're just... they might be
the
beasts and mounted.
Guy, that's surely got to be...
That's probably a monster, I would imagine.
Oh, maybe. Maybe that's true, yeah.
A relatively limited pool of beasts out there. But for those that exist, be afraid.
Yeah, really want to two up, yeah.
Yeah. Stratagem-wise, God, which one to go with? I suppose I'll go with Enfolding Nightmare.
Good choice.
Enfolding Nightmare. Yeah, exactly. It's just like my life these days. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has shot one homunculus covenant unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of those attacks. Roll a d6. Your unit can be moved a number of inches up to the result, but it must end that move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit. When doing so, those models can be moved within engagement range. Handy dandy. Get stuck in, lads.
I mean, it's only 1 CP, but it is only a D6, but...
It's only a D6.
The fact that you can move into engagement range is very strong.
Well, I guess, if people are coming towards you... How is it... Hang on. So, when your opponent's shooting phase, just after an enemy has shot, units from your army that was selected to target one or more of the attacking... Okay, fine. So, basically, they resolve their shots, then you move D6.
And again, it's a great counter to basically be like, do you want to shoot that unit? Because I'm just going to use a strat and you're going to end up in combat with me, which you probably don't want. So do you want to shoot at something else instead?
Well, you definitely, I mean, even if you were expecting to be in combat with that unit, you probably wanted to charge it. It moving into you is not what you were looking for, right? Yeah. Because obviously the way that influences the sequencing is quite significant. So unless the unit you're doing this to happens to have fight first, it's certainly not to your opponent's advantage to enable it. Plus, obviously, as well, any future shooting would then potentially not be able to be resolved against it. So if it was an infantry unit like Rax goes in and then you can't continue the shooting because it's in combat.
True.
It's different, obviously, if it's a monster like the Talos or the Kronos, but c'est la vie. Anyone you want to call out, mate?
I want to do post-mortality for 1 CP. It's in any phase. You select one homunculus model from your army that was just destroyed. You can use this stratagem on the model even though it was just destroyed. The effect is you spend 1 to 3 pain tokens At the end of the phase, set the destroyed model back up on the battlefield as close as possible to where it was destroyed and not within engagement range of any enemy units, with a number of wounds remaining equal to the number of pain tokens you spent, i.e. 1 to 3. The restriction is you cannot use this stratagem if you have 0 pain tokens, and you cannot target the same homunculus model with this stratagem more once per battle. I mean, it's odd that it says you can't use it if you've got 0 pain tokens, because it says you literally have to spend 1 to 3. So you can't set a model up with 0 wounds, but maybe they're just saying that to make that abundantly clear in case someone sort of for some reason wants to do that, so you score kill points twice maybe. I don't know, and there's something that triggers from that, or a way of having something gaining free pain tokens maybe.
Yeah, often these days with this sort of stuff, I find GW obviously has to include some of that
dotting the I's and the T's sort of thing.
Just in case, because there's always someone that will be like, well, technically I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a benefit to something like, I would be able to score a point in this particular secondary because of this stipulation, or whatever. You know?
I mean, that feels quite strong for 1 CP. Yeah, it's only a couple of wounds, but you're doing it at the extraordinary back and backfield. It doesn't say it happens. So it happens immediately. So it says at the end of the phase here. So the model gets up at the end of the phase. So the fact that you can basically do this to all your models, because I guess homunculus is just a keyword, right? So it doesn't even need to be on a character. You could do it to a generic unit. Could you, with a number of wounds remaining equal to the number of pain tokens you spent, could you technically spend 3 pain tokens on a 1 wound model, and it goes, well, technically it now has 3 wounds as per the stratagem?
I mean, you could spend it, but I would argue that
it should be capped.
Obviously. The established pattern. Well, who can you target with it, by the way?
Well, just as homunculus. Is that characters?
Homunculus.
Or is that
just homunculus? One homunculus. Yeah, so it has to be an homunculus. They have 5 wounds, I think, standard. So basically,
fair. I didn't know if that keyword would be used on like generic.
No. The homunculus covens is the generic keyword.
Right. Okay. Fair. Yes. Yeah. I see it.
What I would argue is not that they probably had to address this specifically, but other instances within FAQs and erratas assert that if there is an ability that would enable you to gain access to an outcome greater than your stat line. So if you could move up to 6 inches, but you have a move characteristic of 5 inches, you're capped by your own negative things. So I think the precedent is such that you wouldn't be able to do what you were suggesting. But the way they've written the rules essentially means that it's a moot point anyway.
Fair.
I'm just checking the Drukhari FAQ before I start talking about the last of the detachments, because there is a weirdness to this detachment that needed consideration.
Oh, did this one get changed in any way?
No, but it's weird how it's written. So let me explain the rules. So basically, this is the last of the detachments, the Cabalite Cartel. Hang on. In terms of the coterie, the homunculus governed one.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like a fun detachment, but I would say limited by the range. So like I said, if you're doing a 1,000-point army, you could probably look at this and it would probably provide you a lot of fun options. But if you're looking at a 2,000-point army, I just think the range is way too limited for you to meaningfully benefit from this particular detachment. So nice in principle, but suffers massively just because of the limited options. There's 4 data sheets, and you'll never fill 2,000 points of an army among these governed units based on 4 data sheets. Cool. All right, the last one, the Cabalite Cartel, my favourite of the new detachments, and certainly I think probably one of the strongest ones in the book. I'll get into the hows and whys now. So basically, there's a load of words here that talk about contracts. Essentially, the way it works is you at the start of the game or the start of the first battle round pick the target of your contract. Now, that contract can be one of 3 different variables. It can either be a trophy hunter, sow fear and terror, or a show of strength. If you're a trophy hunter, you basically pick a character unit. So you pick a character unit, and that has become your contract. And while that contract is on the table and alive, each time a Cabal or Blades for Hire model in your unit makes an attack that targets the contract unit, i.e. the character unit that you've selected, those attacks have the precision ability. So that's massively powerful. If there's a super strong character that has huge influence on the ebb and flow of gameplay, say, for example, it's Marnie's Calgar, a character that gives you access to additional CP, but then also has really massive like buffing impacts on your army. It's super useful to just be able to shoot that guy out of a unit. So that is good contextually. The really good ones are Sow the Terror and also Show of Strength, because Sow Fear and Terror is basically done upon an infantry or mounted unit. So you pick an infantry or mounted unit, excluding units containing only character models. That's just another one of those instances of them having to be very particular. But at the start of your command phase, this contract is completed if all non-character models in that unit are destroyed. So that's how you basically complete the contract. Bearing in mind the way you complete the contract in the case of the Trophy Hunters is that character dies. Anyway, the ability that you gain access to is each time a Cabal or Blades for Hire model in this unit makes an attack that targets an infantry or mounted unit, that attack has sustained hits 1 ability. So the nuance here is this: when you're trophy hunting, you only get precision when you're going for that character unit. So when you are targeting your contract, you get precision. However, in Sow Fear and Terror, if you're targeting anything that is mounted or infantry, you're getting sustained hits 1.
Wow, that's pretty good. I like it.
Bear in mind as well that, this creates a really weird situation where you might end up choosing like a unit that you don't really care about interacting with, and then you end up in these weird situations where it's advantageous to your opponent to almost sacrifice the contract. It's almost like, I picked that unit, and then your opponent's like, God, go, have him. Kill him, because this is a bit crazy. And then the last of them is Show of Strength, which is basically done against monsters or vehicles. And in this instance, each time a Cabal or Blades for Hire model in the unit make an attack that targets a monster or vehicle unit, that attack has the lethal hits ability. So, again, every vehicle in your opponent's army can be impacted with lethal hits. That isn't even the contract one. So it's a bit of a mad rule. Because it's kind of inconsistent. So Trophy Hunter only works against your contract, but the other 2 work against everything, including your contract.
It sort of makes sense from... weirdly, the Trophy Hunter one is a contract out on a particular unit. The others technically aren't really, because it's Sow Fear and Terror and Show of Strength, so you're just doing something great, but there is technically a contract on a particular unit, and as I don't think you mentioned, if you kill that unit, you get 3 pain points for completing your contract, and then I guess in your next battle round you can select a new contract. It feels like very much like what the Space Marines get, but like a slightly more complicated version of Oaths of Movement.
Yeah. But again, the reward of free pain tokens is also really powerful as well, obviously, because again, in terms of managing your economy and pain tokens, it's really useful to be able to get access to that. So overall, I think it's a really strong ability. Also, as well, there's a decent range of Cabal and Blades for Hire units in the army. So Cabal units include Archons, Cabalite Warriors, Hand of the Archon. Those 3 options are Cabal. In terms of vehicles, they have a Cabal-specific vehicle in the form of the Ravager. So the Ravager is the raider kind of boat vehicle with the 3 heavy weapons on it. So that is Cabal. So that's really useful. And then when you look at Blades for Hire, you're looking at Incubi, or Incubi, however people want to pronounce it, who are one of, the strongest units in the army, as well as obviously as well... why am I forgetting his name now? Oh God, my brain. Drakhari, thank you, flipping heck. Why I couldn't think of that off the top of my head. So Drakhari is also a Blades for Hire. Mandrakes are Blades for Hire. Scourges are Blades for Hire. These are all very, very good units. So this is where a lot more kind of viability comes into this list, because you basically are going to be able to utilise a lot of Cavalite Warrior units who have got really good, functionality in game. They do sticky objectives. They're just broadly strong. And then all the Blades for Hire units are all almost auto includes in most people's Drukhari armies anyway. So that's why this starts to become actually quite tasty as an overall option. But anyway, that's the ability. Pick a thing. It becomes your contract. When it's your contract, you get a bunch of buffs against corresponding units. Do you want to talk about any of the enhancements?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few good ones, but I'm going to go for the first one, which was Leech Bite Plate. So it's an Archon model only. The bearer has a save characteristic of 3+. I assume it's 4 normally.
4+ normally, yeah.
Yeah, but at the start of either player's command phase, you may spend 1 pain token. If you do, the bearer regains all its lost wounds. That just seems really cool.
It is cool. It's sort of bizarrely situational. Boosting the armor save to a 3+ is interesting because you still have access to your shadow field, and your shadow field is a 2-up invulnerable save that you can't re-roll under any circumstances. That 2-up invuln save, once you fail it, goes away entirely. Then normally what happens is you then become an Archon with a 4+ armor save, which is quite easy to kind of chew through.
Yeah.
But having a 3+ armor save makes you a little bit more durable.
True.
But the fact that you can spend 1 pain and regain all your wounds.
I mean, you only have 4 wounds, so I sort of feel like once that 2-up in one goes, you're kind of dead.
But you might not be with a 3-up armor save. You definitely are with a 4-up.
It might keep you alive long enough to then, regen your wounds for another turn. And if you do that to start your phase, that, potentially gives you another, whole turn in the game. Or whole battle round, shall I say.
So the one I'm going to pick is a very strong upgrade that I think is really cool, which is the Webway Owl. I looked this up. A owl is a leather working tool, Phil. It's a tool they use to punch holes in leather.
Oh, and you're just doing that in the webway.
I guess that's what you're doing.
Yeah, punching holes in the webway.
Hole in the webway. Anyway, because again, it used to just be called a webway portal, but I guess over time they've just gone, it's now a webway all. Because sure, why not? Because it's only a little hole. Models in the bearer's unit have the deep strike ability, which is great, and you can rapid ingress for no CP. So really strong ability there. Adding deep strike to a unit, and then obviously being able to bring them on via rapid ingress for 0 CP. Very, very good. Stratagem, mate?
I'm going to go for Double Cross. It is 1 CP. It's in the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. You target 1 Cabal or Blades for Hire unit from your army that was selected as one of the targets of 1 or more attacks for the unit's attacks. And 1 friendly Drukhari unit, excluding vehicles. So effectively you get to select 2 targets. The effect is until the end of that phase, each time you would allocate an attack to a model in your Cabal or Blades for Hire unit, if your Drukhari unit is within engagement range of the attacking model, no saving throws is made for the attack. Instead, your Drukhari unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the damage characteristic of that attack. It's like old school Tau shield drones all over again. I mean, that's quite brutal for you as a player, but if needs must and you need to just sacrifice a unit to keep your better unit in the game, it feels really thematic. So, yeah, I like it.
Yeah. No, I like it too. I think it's cool to see it in there. There's some really interesting stratagems in here. Enemies without number is basically the one that lets you do another contract. So if you complete your contract, 1 CP in your command phase, then you can pick a new contract. So that's kind of like an obvious quintessential thing that you would expect with a rule like this. So for 1 CP, you can have an additional contract. But I think for me, I quite like the Deadly Deceivers, although it's a bit situational because basically what it is in your opponent's shooting phase, you pick a unit and basically you make that unit lone op 18 inches. But which is strong, right? So you can't target them with an 18, but the complexity of that is it has to be a Cabal or Blaze for Hire unit. Raiders and Venoms are not either of those. So if you've got a lot of transports, fair. But that's the thing. So if you've got someone on foot, so it's really good for things like Mandrakes, although Mandrakes get it innately, so it's a moot point for Mandrakes, actually. It's so good for Mandrakes, they have it in their core rules. But I suppose it's good for things like Scourges, good for things like the Ravagers. So there is options to it. But again, with the way the game is played, it's probably going to be rare that you're going to be targeted from that distance. But it does mean that if you've got a lot of out of line of sight, indirect fire coming from greater distances, you can be like, oh, my key unit doesn't get blown away at the start of the game by, various, Havoc launchers or whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, there's lots of good strats. So, like, quickly talking about making a point is +1 ballistic skill, +1 AP, and tailored toxins is against your contract unit, you score a critical hit on a 5+.
Yeah,
so all of these are really good.
Yeah, it's a good detachment, good abilities, good things. I think this is the one that, but for me, I'm either going to be using Cabalite Cartel or I'm going to be using Sky Splinter Assault. Those are the two. Although, to be honest, I'd probably also be looking at Reaper's Wager a lot of the time as well, which is the Grotless detachment. But
okay, yeah.
But we digress. But on the whole, look, I think actually some good detachments. The only two that let it down, and they don't let it down by virtue of what they are. They just let it down because they've just not enough models to support them. It's the Homunculus one and the Witches one. But on the whole, I think they've done really well with this. And there's some flavour to it as well, which is great. When we were reading through the Imperial Knight rules, it was like, oh, God, these are so... I mean, that defensive line thing they did for Imperial Knights...
Oh, that was mad. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, it was pretty boring on the whole, whereas these at least feel like they kind of embody some flavour. But I think that's, again, going back to what I was saying a while ago now, I think that's because of the work that was done years ago to really flesh out the world the Drukhari inhabit. But some cool detachments, I would say, on the whole, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the detachments out of the way, it is only customary that we talk about some of the data sheets that are found within Codex Drukhari. There's a few that have been changed in interesting ways. There are others that haven't had particularly massive updates. Apologies there as Phil throws things on the floor. Terribly unprofessional.
My desk is too cluttered for opening the book to a full page spread.
Yours and mine both, my friend, to be fair.
It was a sculpting tool that's it's too far away for me to reach, so I'll just have to live down there for now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surrounded by Skaven and Drukhari, actually, at the moment. Got a few Drukhari models on the go also. But anyway, let's talk about some of the data sheets. I think the first one we need to talk about is Lady Malice, because, as I said at the start of all of this, she has basically now become something of an auto-include. If you're looking to do a Drukhari army, you're probably going to want to add Lady Malice to your force.
Do we need to look at an Archon first as like a baseline of what a generic hero is, or you just go straight in for the best one?
No. I think it doesn't hurt. I like that, Phil. Yeah. So, I mean, a regular Archon, for context, is obviously your generic captain-esque leader. They've been changed a little bit here from what they were before, and actually now they really are very captain-esque in terms of how they function. Not crazy durable, but it's very dependent. Obviously, they've got a 2-up invuln that you can't re-roll, but if they fail that 2-up invuln, they lose it. That's always been like the cool, interesting gimmick of the Archons, and it remains intact now, which is super cool. But yeah, their movement is 7, which is pretty standard Drukhari movement. Toughness is 3, which again is in line with Drukhari stat lines. They have a save of 4+, an invulnerable save of 2+, which, as we've stated, is only available until it isn't. 4 wounds, which isn't a huge amount of health. Leadership of 6, which is good, and OC of 1, right? So pretty decent little stat line. Weapon options wise, it's got a couple of options. You basically got 2 different types of pistol, the one that you're going to take and the one that you probably will never take. So you've got the blast pistol, which is basically one shot at strength 8 AP3 that does D3 damage, or you've got the splinter pistol, which is one shot at strength 2 AP nothing 1 damage. I wonder which one I would take.
But that is anti-infantry 3 and assault.
Yeah, but if I shoot most infantry with a strength 8 gun, I'm wounding them on 2s.
Okay, you make a fair point. Yes, 1 shot each. It's a slightly longer range, 12 inches.
It is a
rather
slightly
than 6.
longer range, and it does have the assault keyword. So
if you're running around, running and gunning, as they say. There's also the soul trap, right? That you can. Swap
yes, that is true as well.
for.
So you do have the option of not taking a pistol, but taking the soul trap as well. And I would take the soul trap 9 times out of 10 because I think it's fun. So basically, a soul trap adds 1 to the attacks and strength characteristics of the bearer's melee weapons. And the first time the bearer makes a melee attack that destroys an enemy unit, after all the bearer's attacks have been resolved, until the end of the battle, add 1, an additional 1 to the attacks and strength characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. And that does stack on itself. So basically, you get the +1 strength, +1 attack.
So you get +2 once you've killed a model.
Once you've killed something, you go up to +2. I believe that's how.
Yes, it says add an additional 1.
Yes,
attack. So that implies it'll be +2 basically attacks and strength, which is pretty good. I mean, your melee weapons are strength 3, strength 4, so it's not standout, but up to strength 6.
Up to strength 6. More often than not, you're going to take the husk blade because of the devastating wounds on it, as well as obviously the damage free. So yeah, getting 6 attacks at strength 5, -2, 3 damage, at least once you've kind of stacked it up. It's pretty respectable, all things being equal. The Agonizer is a fun little option, 6 attacks with anti-infantry 3+, -2, but just 1 damage. I think you're going to always just take the husk blade. It seems like the one to choose. Basically.
For sure. Something with -2 AP, flat 3 damage. Oh, yeah.
And then in terms of the abilities, they've got a few abilities. So they've got their pain ability, which is Hatred Eternal. In your shooting phase or the fight phase, when you select this model's unit to shoot or fight, you can spend 1 pain token to empower it. While you do that, each time model in that unit makes an attack, you can re-roll all your hit rolls. So that's very, very potent to be able to re-roll your hit rolls for 1 pain. So one of these guys leading a unit of Incubi is pretty meaningful.
I mean, hitting on 2's re-rolling.
Yeah. It's solid. He's got the Overlord ability, which is once per battle at the start of any phase. You can select 1 friendly Drukhari unit that is battle shocked, and then essentially make it no longer battle shocked.
Tell them to not be scared anymore.
Absolutely. You should be more scared of me.
Well, that's true. If that isn't how... I mean, it should be a bit like Commissars. It's like 1 model dies, but they're no longer battle shocked because he's just like, I've just killed one of you to teach you all a lesson.
Well, I think when it comes to Eldari outlooks on things, they're not quite so, nonchalant.
Frivolous with their.
Yeah, elder life is precious. Even the weird, strange mutants that make up the bulk of the Drukhari. We didn't talk about that before, by the way, but there's a lot of weirdness with Drukhari and their actual kind of pure Eldari status. A lot of them are a little bit more test tube baby than authentic Eldari. But
true.
Anyway. And then, lastly, Devious Mastermind, which is basically the captain ability from Space Marines, which is once per battle round, 1 model from your army with this ability can reduce the cost of a stratagem by 1 CP.
Okay, I mean, tactically useful, yes. Boring and generic, also yes.
It's true, but it's different from what they used to have. So they used to have an ability that has been moved over onto Lady Malice. So it's nice they've got some functionality, but I think it's I do agree with you. Going back to the well and using the sort of generic stuff is a bit underwhelming. But on the whole, it's a perfectly good unit. I would probably always take 1 Archon in every army, in addition to Lady Malice. Lady Malice, by the way, is also an Archon, obviously, if it wasn't already originally stated or clearly understood. But yeah, the Archon is good. It's just not extraordinary. I think this plus some Incubi is a pretty great unit. Whack them in a Venom, jump out, give them the whole reroll hits situation. The Incubi themselves, when they're under the influence of pain, also gain devastating wounds. So it's decent. It's a decent little combination.
Would the Archon also get devastating wounds, or is it just their unit that gets that?
Well, if he's got a Husk Blade, he has devastating wounds.
Oh, anyway. True.
But yeah, I believe they would both benefit from it, though, yes, would be my assertion, based on how things stack up. But Lady Malice is basically the Archon on steroids, effectively. So very, very similar profile, except 1 extra wound, 1 extra OC. So 5 wounds, 2 OC. However, she does not have a Shadow Field. She has a 4-up invulnerable save with no caveats or stipulations. So she's always got a 4-up invuln. But she also, and this is an important thing to note, she also has a 5-up feel no pain, which is...
Oh, yeah.
Yes, which is very helpful.
I did notice that because I was reading some of her other rules and I was like, but yeah, I guess that would help.
Yes, so the 5-up feel no pain, which is decent. She's got her Lady's Blade, which is a terrible name. The Lady's Blade. Again, it's basically a Husk Blade, but it comes at strength 5. So it's basically like the Husk Blade in its powered up form. So if you power up your Archon's Blade with the Soul Trap, it would be the same profile, although this has an additional pip of AP. So 6 attacks.
Right, yeah, because it has 6 attacks.
Yeah, 6 attacks, strength 5, AP 3, 3 damage. A very, very good weapon, especially with devastating wounds, but it is hazardous.
That's the thing I was like, does this make her good? I mean, if she rolls badly, she could be dead.
Well, yeah.
But then
again,
that's what the
Feel No
Pain's for, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it is one of those things where, yeah, obviously it is the double-edged sword nature of it, but on the whole, it's, I'd say it's a worthy trade-off. She's also got the Razor Fan, which is extra attacks, so an additional 6 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 3, no AP, 1 damage. Nothing extraordinarily amazing, but just extra attacks. So when she's running in, she's got 12 attacks in total of varying strengths and APs, but yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Pretty decent. Then in terms of her pain ability, she gives the unit either sustained hits 1 or lethal hits until the end of the phase. So that's really good. So she's got the whole ability to, give sustained or lethals, which I think is going to be massively valuable. Again, taking that on some Incubi is a bit interesting, but again, you probably go into like the sustained hits 1 model. So then all of a sudden, when you're going in, you're potentially generating more attacks, which is really good. She's got the procrastinate. Is that right?
Precognizance.
Oh,
precognizance. Yeah.
Procrastinate. Jesus.
I mean, she might do. She's a bit lazy. Yeah.
But yeah, if your army includes this model, after both players have deployed their armies, select up to 3 Drukhari units from your army and redeploy them. When doing so, you can set those units up in strategic reserves if you wish, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. Incredibly powerful ability. Obviously, a lot of people aren't going to not be taking mandrakes. They're really useful, so you can use those in a really kind of frivolous fashion. So if you took like a big 10-man unit of mandrakes and strung them out to really kind of deny areas of the board.
Do they have infiltrate? I'll take it then. They
have infiltrate and deep strike, yeah.
Okay.
So you can basically pick them up and put them back.
Cool.
Which is great. But then obviously it works for other things as well, which is really great. And it's Drukhari units, so that's transports, vehicles, everything, which is super cool. And she doesn't even need to be on the battlefield to get it. She just needs to be in your army, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's interesting wording. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And then lastly, it's Mind Like a Steel Trap, which is basically if you're within 12 inches of her, she's going to make your stratagems cost an additional CP, which is hugely powerful on a unit like this that's going to definitely be, running around in the front lines, accompanied by a bunch of incubi, causing a real ruckus. So, yeah, I honestly think Lady Malice is an auto-include. Her utility is fantastic. Her profile and rules are really good. And her points aren't crazy either. I can't remember exactly what it is. Don't quote me on it, but she's not crazy expensive at the moment, which is cool. So Lady Malice and Archons are pretty quintessential. You're going to have one or the other or both in pretty much all of your Drukhari armies, unless you're leaning into those Witch or Homunculus Coven builds. But yeah, I think most of us are going to probably find ourselves with both of those options on the battlefield, especially Lady Malice. She's an obvious pick if you're doing Drukhari, in my opinion.
Who out of all the characters do you think is the most killy? Do you think it's her or Drazar or Lilith?
Lilith is situationally killy in the sense that obviously her speciality is she's really good at
just infantry.
Chewing through sort of infantry units. She's got that going for her. Of the named characters, I find Drazar weird because Drazar has all these extra steps added into him. Why don't you tell us about Drazar, Phil, and we can talk about it more completely.
Yeah, so let me just compare the stat line, because it's over on the other page. So they both have movement 7, toughness 3. Oh, he has a 2-up save and a 4-up invuln. So that's instantly better. Same number of wounds, which is 5. Leadership 6+. OC only 1, as opposed to her 2. His weapon's pretty similar. So it's the Executioner's Demi-Glaives, so you can run it as a single blade or a dual blade. They both have devastating wounds. So as a single blade, it's 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 6, -2, damage 3. And dual blades is 8 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 5, -2, 2 damage. So for 2 less, you get basically an extra pip of strength and damage, which sort of feels quite comparable to hers, although hers is obviously hazardous. His is actually 1 extra strength. Hers is 1 extra AP, which is kind of good sometimes. But if you're going in something like Terminators, 2-up save, -2 AP is the perfect amount before they're on the invuln anyway. He doesn't have a Feel No Pain though, but he does have Masters of the Blade, which is a pain ability. In the fight phase, when you set this model to fight, you can spend 1 pain power to empower it. While this unit is empowered, all of that just feels like that could have just been worded in the actual, core rules for how pain works. You could have just had Masters of Pain, fight phase, one PP for pain point. They could have tidied this up and streamlined a bit. Anyway, so it costs 1 pain point, fight phase. While this unit is empowered, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, add 1 to the wound roll. Ooh, that's pretty good, and also affects the whole unit that he's with.
Yep.
He's also got Onslaught, so while this model is leading a unit, each time a model in this unit makes a pile-in or consolidation move, it can go up to 6 inches instead of 3 inches. That's very good, I would say, when you're trying to nab an objective. And then lastly, he's got Silent Executioner. So each time this model makes an attack that targets a unit that is below its starting strength, you can reroll the hit roll. And if it's below half strength, you can reroll the wound roll as well. Okay, so strength 6, but you can get +1 to your wound roll. And you can also, the best case scenario, re-roll your wound roll as well.
Yeah, again, though, the odds are that most of the time with the way 40k plays, typically you're going to be re-rolling your hit rolls.
Yeah.
Because you probably will have done something on the way in, but it's highly improbable that you're going to get the wound rolls as well, at least on the first round of combat. Okay, fair enough. If it keeps going and you're stuck in there, you might start to see the benefit of it. I personally really struggle with this sort of template rule that they've used time and time again, because they do it a lot with armies where they have this stipulation. get your reroll hits. If they're damaged, get the rerolls to wound as well. If they're really damaged, it just feels... It feels ugly. It doesn't feel like a very elegant solution, and it's one of those ones that I think a lot of people forget a lot of the time. But regardless, it has its uses for sure. I just don't particularly like it as a rule.
I have to say, as a mechanic, if you are damaged, do this, or they're damaged, depending on if it's on you or your target. And then, if you're at half strength, also do this. It's probably the most uninteresting and unappealing game mechanic in the entire edition as a hot take. I would say it's it's just very convoluted.
One of the units that I feel like has had a real boost in output this codex, bearing in mind they were already a quintessential Drukhari unit, is
the Void Raven Bomber. Oh, man.
To be fair, the Void Raven Bomber does have some play, but the Mandrakes, I'm very impressed by what the Mandrakes can do now. And I think there is an argument that you probably start almost every Drukhari list you write putting a block of 10 Mandrakes in, because I think one unit of 10 Mandrakes is just auto-include now. So, movement-wise, they're fast. They've got movement of 8. Toughness-wise, they're still Eldari, or Drukhari, so they're toughness 3. Save is 7+, which is obviously terrible, but they've got a 5-up in Vun.
That's almost unheard of nowadays. I remember that being really common in 8th edition. You don't see it very much nowadays.
No. Wound of 1, which isn't especially special. Leadership 7, which is actually quite underwhelming also. OC 1, which is, all sorts of okay. They've got Deep Strike, Infiltrate, and Stealth. So all very, very powerful utility abilities.
Did you mention 5-up in Vun, sorry?
Yes, sorry, I did say yeah. So they got the 5-up in Vun. You can't target them unless you're within 18 of them, which is obviously very, very useful. And their powerful pain ability is Fade Away. So this happens at the end of your opponent's fight phase. They basically go back into reserve.
Oh, annoying. Oh, wow, that's really good in the current game state with things like secondaries. That is very good.
And
the fact that they basically can't be hit within 18 and have stealth, so they're -1 to be hit anyway. That is good.
Yeah. The thing that really gives them a lot of scariness is before they used to be quite good at shooting, but didn't really have too much power in the fight phase. Whereas now they're just this really amazing all-rounder. So if you take a unit of 10 of these guys, you're going to get 20 shots at range 18, hitting on 3, strength 5, -1 AP, 1 damage, but it's devastating wounds with assault as well. So obviously you can advance and do this, and ignores cover, right? So it's a really, really good gun. 20 shots from that is pretty meaningful. But you also get their Glimmer Steel Blades, which are now 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 5, 1 damage, -1. So again, a very, very all-round kind of useful unit. There's nothing about these guys that isn't good in my opinion. And they're quite appropriately pointed as well. Let me just remind myself what they're coming in at. So a unit of Mandrakes, a 10-man unit of Mandrakes. How much do you think you pay for 10 Mandrakes, Phil? I'll just throw it out there.
90 points.
As in 90 points for 10 or 90 points for 5? Because the normal unit size is 5.
No, 10, I would say.
Well, you're expecting a lot. They're 150.
Okay.
90 points is insane, but fair enough to you. But
I was thinking Guardsmen are 40, 50 points.
That's fair.
A Space Marine squad of 5 is around 100, isn't it? So I was a bit nah.
Yeah, no, fair. But no, there's 75 points for 550 for 10.
Okay. I mean, they've got a lot of shenanigans, so I think utility-wise, that seems quite fair for 10.
Yeah, so they're really fun. The only other units I thought that were worth talking about is the Scourges, because they've taken the opportunity to split the Scourges into 2 data sheets, which I think is the right way to go about it. Scourges have definitely been one of the, not problem units, but just one of the more prolific units in competitive play, just because they had a lot of access to a lot of really amazing heavy weapons. But what's really nice now is they've given us the option to actually meaningfully take the light armament, like shard carbine variant. So do you want to talk through Scourges, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Quick question. Are these new sculpts?
No. These are... God, you know what? Did the Scourges launch with it back in 2009, 2010? I'm not sure. I think they came later, but yeah, they've been around for a while.
Because on the profile, they look phenomenal. But then when you see them in the picture below, you're like, oh, I can see from the lower half they're not quite all that. Like, there's a bit of scaling, should we say, with the legs. I think they just seem a bit on the small side. But I mean, they're pretty cool sculpts.
They are a really beautiful unit. I've got 10 of them myself, and they're just really gorgeous.
Yeah. So
the helmet designs are really nice because they've kind of got like that hawk-esque kind of pointiness to it with the plumage and stuff. They're a cool looking unit. The only thing that's weird to me is the ones that have like the bare arms. That's always the ones that sort of
that does look a touch odd. I think the full armored ones look better, but I think I was going to say maybe it's reflected in their saves, but they're the same. Which stat line do you want me to go through? The heavy weapons or the shard carbines?
Go for the heavy weapons one, mate.
So they are a whopping 14-inch movements, which is huge. They are toughness 3, a 4-up save, 5-up inbun, which is pretty good. 1 wound, leadership 7, 1 OC. They've got deep strike. Their ability is Winged Strike, which is their Power from Pain ability. So in the shooting phase, when they're shooting, you can spend a point to empower them, and you get reroll to hit rolls, which you're mostly hitting 3s and 4s, so that is good. They've also got Airborne Evasion, so in your shooting phase after this unit has shot, if they're not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. So a 20-inch move, basically. If it does, though, they can't declare a charge at the end.
As if you would.
Yeah. The Solarite, which I guess is the leader, is equipped with the Shard Carbine and Close Combat Weapon, while everyone else is equipped with Splinter Cannons. And then, the Solarite can change it for a Blast Pistol and Power Weapon or Splinter Pistol and Power Weapon. And then you can pick and mix anything you want. So any number of the others can replace a Splinter Cannon with a Blaster, a Dark Lance, a Haywire Blaster, a Heat Lance, or a Shredder. Each...
And it's not like...
it does say... Well, it says each can replace it with one of the following. So is that implying that you can have 4 guys with Haywire Blasters? Or
correct,
is it...
Yeah.
But do you get that many in the box?
You don't, weirdly, but you can do it. It's like one of those weird scenarios
old school, like, do what you want with them. Because it almost implies with each can replace a Splinter Cannon with one of the following, almost as if each one can take just one, and you can't have multiples. But normally they stipulate that with like a little cross or something.
You can basically take multiples of these, and they're flipping amazing. 4 Dark Lances are terrifying, especially obviously with the fact that you come down from deep strike, shoot, and then move, although you can't do that actually because they've ruled it in 40k that any abilities that move after a deep strike aren't possible, but you still move 14, shoot and move. It's absolutely devastating.
I mean,
the way
if you got a 14-inch movement, you can easily just be hidden behind something. They're still infantry, so they can just teleport through walls. They can just poke out through a building, shoot, and then poke back in. And they're basically 36-inch range las cannons, but they do d6 plus 2 damage. So they are good.
Haywire blasters are amazing as well, like super good. I really like the Heat Lance as well, mostly because it's an assault weapon.
Oh my god, that is good. So assault heavy, melter free, only 18-inch range, so you got to be within 9 to get that. One attack, hitting on 4s, but strength 14, minus 4 d6 damage. Bearing in mind that most melters are strength 9. So this is the profile of what melter guns and multi-melters should be. That's pretty good.
Well, it's because it combines the melter concept with the old lance concept, which admittedly now is a outmoded weapon profile from old editions.
So basically you can move 14 plus advance and then do an extra d6 move after you've done that.
No. Only if you, in the shooting phase after shooting a shot. Yeah. You can just do another move. It's crazy, isn't it?
That is pretty good.
It's super strong. These guys again are another one of those, like, you gotta take them. Like they are an auto include in your army.
I mean, even the splinter cannon story is quite good because that's heavy sustained hits 1, anti-infantry 3+, 3 attacks each, 36-inch range, hitting on 4s, strength 3, but it doesn't matter because you're anti-infantry 3+. It's only minus 1 AP, but it's 2 damage, but you've got enough shots to sort of murder a bunch of Space Marines. Yeah,
I don't think you're ever going to see too many of these armed with that. I think you basically get...
Well, you take them for the anti-vehicle, right?
Yeah, you're either going Dark Lances or you're probably either going Dark Lances or you're going Haywire. Those are probably the two that are going to appear most frequently. Because the advantage of the Dark Lances is anti-vehicle 4+ with devastating wounds. So...
so it combos, right? So every 4 is... Because I was saying the problem with it's only AP -1, but you don't care. You're just rolling for the 4-ups.
Yeah, for the devastating. Yeah.
Oh, thank God there's no reroll the wound roll, because that'd be bonkers otherwise.
Yeah, well, the thing is, though, is like, so if you took these, because these are Blades for Hire, if you took them in the detachment with the Cabal and Blades for Hire things, you could give them... well, actually...
Is this where you do the trophy things? That one?
Well, because it was that thing where... Actually, it doesn't work that way because you'd be ending up in a situation where you'd be doing lethal hits against vehicles, so it's actually not that advantageous. But you do get sustained hits against infantry. Anyway, long story short is it's still decent, basically. You're gonna course, you go in, you use your power from pain, you re-roll your hits. Odds are a unit of Scourges with heavy weapons is going to drop most vehicles in the game. Will it kill a Land Raider guaranteed? No, but it'll kill a lot of stuff. Like, it's got a good chance of dropping quite a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, with the Haywire Blast being 24 inches, that's a lot of threat range with your movement.
Yeah.
For sure. Shall we quickly look at the abilities for the Scourges as well?
Yeah, please, yeah.
So they've got their Power from Pain ability, Swooping Descent. In your movement phase, you can spend 1 point to empower them. Each time a model in this unit is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike ability, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield more than 6 inches away from enemy models. When doing so, if this unit is set up within 9 inches of one or more enemy units, you can't charge. Okay. That's quite handy if you just want to drop down and shoot stuff, though, which is what they're pretty good at. And then lastly, they've got Murderous Crossfire. After this unit has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of that phase, each time a friendly Drukhari unit makes a ranged attack that targets the enemy unit, improve the AP characteristic of the attack by 1. The same enemy can only be afflicted by this ability once per turn. I mean, that's interesting, because you could technically combo the 2 Scourges together and use that ability just to ping one guy shooting at a vehicle and split firing the rest, and then it's like, cool, that vehicle, I'm now going to have -1 AP extra when my heavy weapon team comes down to blast it to smithereens.
I love this the Shard Carbine squad because they are now they're kind of like warp spiders for the craft worlders, the mainline Eldari, in so much as they're just a unit that obviously you can put in reserves, bring it in within 6. A lot of people use a number of different types of units in their backfield to obviously, screen and protect their back lines. The thing is that, you can rapid ingress into, the back lines, use that pain ability to be able to go within 6. So you can get into some nice gaps using the rapid ingress.
I don't think you can rapid ingress and use the power from pain.
Oh, no, you're right.
Because it says your movement phase. Yeah.
Yes, I apologise.
But I mean, with they've only got 3 models in a unit, so that's quite a small footprint. Because I imagine they're on
it's 5 models. Yeah.
But I mean, they're not on huge bases, so you should be able to. You could potentially squeeze that in.
Yeah, I forget what bases they actually ship them with. But the point is, though, because they're movement 14 and almost all their guns that you're going to take are assault. You essentially you can get stuck in. So even if someone's got a unit of infiltrators chilling in the back line, you can sort of rapid ingress and then get up in there and cause them a real headache. Because if you just take the standard shard carbine, you're looking at a unit of 5 doing 15 shots, anti-infantry 3+. It's a lot of damage to deal. They're just a good backline harassment unit. Again, the points delta between them and the heavy weapons one is 50 points. So if you want the heavy weapons variant, it's 130 points. If you want the shard carbine variant, it's 80 points. And I think for 80 points, you look at it as some pretty great value there from those shard carbine guys. Obviously, the heavy weapons one is an obvious gimme. Like, you're always going to probably lean into the heavy weapons variant. But I don't think there's too many reasons not to take one unit of shard carbines. If you've got a spare 80 points, I think there's worse ways you could spend it. Although maybe you'd look at a unit of mandrakes by comparison. But yeah, I think on the whole, I think the change to the Scourge is nice to see, because I like the fact now that people will have the option of using shard carbines, because no one was using them across the last 2.5 years. So I think that's cool that we're in a situation where we could start to see those reappear, which is nice. I think that probably does it in terms of data sheets. I don't think we need to go around the houses. I think on the whole,
can I suggest one more?
Of course you can.
Should we do the Raider? And look at a transport.
Go on then, let's do the Raider. Tell me about the Raider.
It basically had a bunch of interesting looking rules, so that's why I wanted to read it. But it's got a movement of 14, a toughness of 8, a 4-up save, a 6-up invuln, 10 wounds, leadership 7, and 2 OC. It has deadly demise D3. It can deep strike, and it has firing deck of 11, noting that it has a transport capacity of 11 as well, excluding jump pack models, so none of your Scourges. It has its pain ability is Splinter Axe. In your shooting phase, you can spend 1 pain token to empower it. If 1 or more units are embarked within this model, each time that model makes an attack with a ranged weapon that has the anti-ability, you can reroll the hit roll. Interesting. I guess a lot of anti-infantry weapons will be about. It also has Vanguard of the Dark City. At the start of your command phase, select one of the abilities on the Vanguard of the Dark City section to the left for this model. And at the start of your next command phase, this model has that ability. So it sort of has like a mini Primarch ability, which is quite cool. There are 4 options. You've got Master of the Shadowed Sky. At the end of your command phase, if this model is within range of an objective mark you control, and 1 or more Calibite Warriors units are embarked within it, that objective remains under your control. So sticky objectives. That's very cool.
Yeah, which is, it's important to actually say, because before... So Cabalite Warriors before had an ability which gave them sticky objectives. They still have that ability, but that ability used to also infer sticky objectives onto transports they were embarked within. However, now it's only available to the Raider if you use this ability. So if you put a unit of Cabalite Warriors in a Venom, that Venom will not get that ability. It's only available to the Raider now,
Fair.
which is another good reason to take a Raider.
I think so. It's also got speed of a kill each time a Witcher's unit disembarks, excluding emergency disembarkation. Witches must be set up hold within 6 inches of this model instead of 3, so that's quite cool. Visions of Butchery, while there's one or more rack units embarked on this model. For each rack model embarked, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of this model's blade vances and chain snares, which is their close combat profile, which we can talk in a second. Then lastly, there's Eversails. One or more Drukhari units are embarked within this model. You can reroll the advance and charge rolls made for this model. It's kind of interesting, but, not as useful maybe as some of the others. It's equipped with a Dark Lance, blade vances and chain snares, and you can change a Dark Lance for Disintegrator Cannon, which is probably not as good as the Dark Lance, to be fair. But the blade vances and chain snares are D3 plus 3 attacks, hitting on falls, strength 6, -1 AP and 1 damage. But for each rack embarked, you can get +1 attacks. So I'm assuming up to 11.
Yeah. An additional 11, right?
Yeah. So
wow. You'd only get 10 racks in there, and then maybe a homunculus. So yeah, you'd get an additional +10.
So 13 plus D3 attacks.
And don't forget, if you took them in that other detachment, you can use that weird
the mortal wound thing.
Element as well.
So you could make it quite punchy.
Not necessarily racks, but yeah, you got my point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's some interesting stuff. I like the Raider. I mean, I've always liked the Raider. They're cool. I also like the fact that they've given them the Splinter Rack ability as a pain thing. That used to be like a vehicle upgrade. But yeah, linking it to pain, I guess, makes sense. Yeah, no, I think they've, I think that's a really interesting lot of flavour. And the Raider's a beautiful kit. I love the fact that they allowed you to kind of add all these nice, fun embellishments before, and the fact that, again, the ship came with all these extra, inhabitants that you could have hanging off of it.
Yeah, that all looks really cool. I mean, all of them, like even the Ravager and the Venom, look cool.
Oh, the Ravager is...
The Raider and Ravager look like proper pirate ships with, people hanging off the sides and stuff. It looks very awesome.
Yeah, they're great, man. Like, and that's the thing. Like this is what I was saying before when we were kind of getting going about the range. I just don't think they need to do much with it. I think, yes, give us some grotesque models in the future. Give us some more homunculus coven stuff. Maybe add in some new units. Maybe revisit some of the old concepts. Bring some of that stuff back. But I just think that's the thing, really, with Drukhari. It's like there is a really easy win, which is just expand the homunculus coven range, bring back some of the stuff you got rid of. But I think that's the thing. I think it feels like a really complete and really varied and really interesting book.
True. The one thing they don't have is like a big giant centerpiece model, like an Avatar of Cain or a Yin Khan type. Maybe it could be a jumbo grotesque model.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool if the Tantalus was
the Forge World ships that they had.
Yes, the large scale transport.
Yeah,
I'd love like a Tantalus kit, and that Tantalus kit could also make kind of like a grand barge for Vect, for example. Maybe you could do like a Vect thing. But I sort of like the fact that Vect isn't in the game anymore. Like, he was in the original 3rd edition book, and he was a playable miniature. So it used to be that Vect was playable in his pimped out Raider. And that was super cool, but at the same time...
he's not just a stratagem?
No, correct. Yeah, no, he used to be. He used to have a miniature and everything. But yeah, what I think is that really, for the way the Drukhari play, I don't really feel like they need a big centerpiece model. I know there's this sort of desire to kind of add those elements in because it's in other armies, but I do feel like these days that I think they should sort of celebrate what's unique and interesting about these guys and not just give them the same stuff as everyone else just because, they feel like they need to. Like, I think it would be a real shame for them to layer that in, because I think it makes sense that these are a small elite raiding force and they go to battle on the back of transports and do what they do. I think that's more appropriate than adding large centerpiece models. I think that to me just feels like it's that thing where it would be crazy to me that every single real space raid featured Vect. I'd just be a bit like, oh, this is a bit silly now.
But every Dark Angels features the lion.
Absolutely.
Like, that is the problem with the big centerpiece models, is it makes the game feel very small, ironically, because you're seeing the same named characters again and again. And I've said it many a time that I don't think every army should have the same sort of archetypes of everything has a big centerpiece model because everything should have. Like, I like the fact that, you know, Guard has some big tanks, but prior to Lord Solar didn't have like a big centerpiece character model in quite the same way that some of the others did. So I like that some of them just have there's lots of little guys, or lots of little guys in lots of little boats.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well, is how they kind of explore those ideas. Because when I think about other armies that I feel like shouldn't have big centerpiece models, I think like the Genestealer cults are one of those as well. Like, I don't think it makes any sense that the Patriarch goes out to fight with the GSC. It's like, no, the Patriarch should be like, basically, like, I feel like if you're going to give them access to a massive centerpiece model like the Patriarch and say like, oh, this is in your army, it almost should be like, yeah, but if it dies, everyone
it's like an auto lose. I guess the reason why it would be out and about is because when you're fighting, it's Ascension Day, right? This is the last hurrah of, you know, the culmination of years of planning, so he doesn't need to just stay behind and, you know, sit on his throne like the old model.
Yeah, fair.
He's, you know, they've got to go out and win the day for, you know, the Tyranids, basically.
Yeah, but I think that would have been, anyway, this is my thing, like, I like weird, quirky rules and interesting things like that.
No, true.
Anyway.
I do get what you mean.
I mean, maybe what they should do is just move into a system where they're like, no one takes unique characters in, like, you know, unless
it's over 2,000 points.
Yeah, or maybe they cost additional resources. Maybe you have to spend CP on them to get them into your army or whatever.
Well, you used to have that sort of tax in 8th edition, didn't you, with the detachments? So, yeah, I'm not averse to that sort of thing being in there to have some, narrative storytelling happening.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. AOS has the same problem, right? AOS, everyone's taking, you know, every time, you know, people turn up and they're like, oh, I brought this god to the battlefield. It's like, of course you have. Again, though, I always assert, and I took this from Rob from the Honest Wargamer, I always assert that they're like aspects of the gods. So when I'm playing against Archaon on the battlefield in AOS, I'm not thinking, oh, that's the legit Archaon. I'm thinking more like a Catan Shard type of situation. Where it's a sliver, a piece of him as opposed to actually him.
That's fair. I mean, for him, he is such a big centerpiece model. It's a bit hard there's a bit of cognitive dissonance going on there where I sort of have to believe it's him. More than the Shard, whereas maybe Nagash, you're right, it could just be a version of Nagash because he is a god, whereas Archaon's isn't a god.
Archaon's a god.
Is he? No, he's not. He's just the god's golden child.
No, he's a god, I swear.
Surely the whole point is that he's not a god. He's the ever chosen of the gods. He is their champion, I would say. But that's also why I like...
Oh, no, he's not. He's not a god.
That's why I like that you basically have non-named sort of hero models. So, like, your big, what we call the cabbage, lovingly, for your...
Oh, yeah, the Maw Crusher.
The Maw Crusher. Obviously, there's, I'm sure, a named version of it, but I like that you can just take a generic hero on... Maw Crusher, and that's sort of why it's a bit sad that, you know, the zombie dragon is now only available for a named vampire now, whereas before you could have a generic vampire lord on zombie dragon, and because then you can sort of put your own character into that model, rather than sort of effectively do a named proxy where you're like, okay, cool, I am taking Vordry with his stats, but in my mind, he's actually Bob the Dragon Rider, and he's my guy.
Bob. Anyway, yes.
Bob the Dragon Rider t-shirts will be available from next week. Get yours on pre-order.
You say these things, but you know you're not going to do it.
No, of course not. If there's demand, it will happen. Bob the Dragon Rider could be a thing.
Bob the Dragon Rider. Cool. So, look, in closing, Codex Drukhari. Look, I mean, here's the thing. They didn't reinvent the wheel with it. It's very by the numbers, in the sense that it's very much still Drukhari. I've said it many, many times. Everything that was done in the past to establish this as a really cool, amazing, fleshed out, wonderful faction with loads of character and intrigue and awesomeness still exists. And they've essentially continued to, regurgitate and evolve those kind of concepts in fun and interesting ways. So as a result, it's an interesting book with loads of great options, loads of really cool data sheets, lots of really fun rules, mechanics, and ideas, as has been the case for the last 15 years. Drukhari continue to be a really phenomenal army with a lot of really, really great stuff that I think people will really enjoy playing. So on the whole, this to me is one of the best Warhammer 40,000 codexes of this year. I think on the whole, I feel like a lot of the codexes that we've had throughout the span of 25 have been broadly disappointing. Imperial Knights really didn't excite me or interest me at all. I thought it was a really boring codex with a lot of really bland ideas. Emperor's Children felt, even though, they probably are strong in game, that they weren't that inspiring or interesting. The Astra Militarum didn't even really feel like Imperial Guard, which is why we refer to it as the Astra Militarum Codex now, because that's kind of what it is. On the whole, I've been broadly underwhelmed by the codexes from this year. So it's really nice to see Drukhari coming along and actually offering something, fundamentally interesting. Haven't necessarily reinvented the wheel, but it's just a cool faction. They've done a good job. And I'm excited to play more games with Drukhari before 11th edition comes around the corner. So, on the whole, I'm an advocate. I would suggest to you, if you were interested, it feels like a good time to jump in and collect Drukhari. Unless, of course, they are getting a complete range refresh in a couple of years' time, in which case, whoopsie daisy.
I would say, I would echo some of your thoughts. I do think it's actually a really good codex. I am, if not anything, a diehard nemesis of Drukhari. They were always the bane of my life as a guard player because they have lots of invulns, and as we've already noted, their dark lances just blow stuff up, especially tanks. So I've never really been a fan of them on the other side of the table from them. However, reading this book, I've been feeling quite inspired. I'm a bit like, there's a lot to like. I like some of the theming, some of the vehicles. You go, actually, they do look kind of cool. Some of these models do look good. As I said at the very beginning, cover's great. The breakdown of the sort of different sort of factions within the army is good. They talk about and have, pages dedicated to sort of individual units, not all of them, but a lot of them. So I think from a lore primer point of view, I think it's very strong, and they've done a lot of the things that we have previously criticised the codexes for not doing. So that's kind of cool to see that there's been a lot of love put into this. And I think rules-wise, there's been some really interesting things. The power from pain, feels a lot more fun and thematic than the previous thing. I'm pretty sure in previous editions it used to be each turn it went up, right? It was like sort of almost like a tide thing. So it was like turn 1 you get this, turn 2 you get this. Whereas this feels more resource management, which is sometimes, you could criticise it for being a bit overly complicated, but I think that sort of level of engagement we've always said is sort of like a fun mini game within the game itself. And some of the rules all seem pretty good, and there's some units that look pretty strong, and there's some, my one criticism would actually be this is a great book for existing collectors, maybe not the best time to jump in if, next edition, which is next year, they go, oh yeah, we're just going to do a complete range refresh. But as you say, that might not happen for a few years. Like, you don't know. I don't think it's a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because you can say that about all of them. Even the newest Space Marines will one day be range refreshed. It's just a matter of time. And ideally, you want to get on that boat for a longest period of time. And I feel like you'll be coming in at the tail end if you were to jump in now with some of the older kits. Obviously, there's some that are brand new and stuff like that you definitely don't have to worry about anytime soon.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, mate. I think that's it, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's it's a really rubbish situation to be in, though, where you're like, oh, you'd like to recommend it, but you feel like there's a caution to it. But ultimately, that's just what Games Workshop established.
It's basically if you were brand new and you, for some reason, listening to our podcast and hadn't bought an army, but this one tickled your fancy, and you really want to buy it, just be like, okay, cool, you can buy it, but just know that slightly newer, better models might come along at some point. And will you be okay with that, knowing this up front? And I think being aware that is possibly going to happen, almost incentive enough to do it, because you're not going to be blindsided by it. There'd be nothing worse than dropping a whole bunch of money, buying 2,000 points of stuff, and then next year they're like, oh yeah, here's some new models, and you'd be like, oh, if only I would have known, I would have waited. Whereas, we're telling you, yeah, that might happen. And as you said, a lot of the sculpts still hold up. So even if they did replace them, it's not like they're terrible sculpts currently. It's not like they're in resin or metal or anything, like some of the older stuff was. So I think you're in a reasonably good place to have this as a collection and not care if new stuff comes along.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I reckon that'll do, mate. Us having reviewed Codex Drukhari, quality, fun times for all.
Ending on a high for the codexes.
Absolutely. It's it's nice to see. God bless them. It's a fine time. Cool. All right. Well, that's the end of episode 222. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.